Welcome to DAX Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us for another edition of DAX Machina. Joining me here in the studio tonight is Robbie Rip Rains, host of What's Really Out There, and also my son Noah Jorgamunder over at jorgamunder.twitch TV. He's going to be hanging out with us for a bit tonight.
You butchered that heavily.
Well, I butcher everything. Don't take it personal. Is it jorgamunder.twitch.tv or
twitch.tv/jorgamunder? You
okay, whatever. I get the point across. Twitch.tv/Jorgamunder of the jungle. So, how's everybody doing tonight?
Hanging in there.
Sobering up.
How y'all?
Folks, before we get started, before we jump in tonight, I know you guys know we're going to be talking about the Ohio Grassman, but if y'all are the praying kind of just kind of keep in mind, we're kind of continuing prayers for William Nighthawk. He is still trying to recover from his illness. Well, keep Miss Lene in your prayers as well. Her health has improved significantly, but we want her, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and around for the long haul. Keep Pat Murphy and Pat Kennedy in your prayers also as well. She's in the hospital, and say a few for Anthony as well. He's having some issues that I won't. Well, I'll let him go into when he comes back. But just keep those in your thoughts and prayers if you don't mind, and let them know that we're thinking of them. So beyond that, boys, how you guys doing? I mean, what's going on? What's kicking, chicken?
Oh, I had to spend my day with some old man wearing a black cowboy hat, and
hey, in my defense, I wasn't wearing the cowboy hat at that time.
True. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I was wearing the brown pork pie, the black pork pie.
No, we got a lot of stuff done today, so
sure.
Stuff we needed to get done. So
yeah, and for those who won the giveaways at the 4,000 mark, just wanted to let you guys know. Yeah, it took me a little bit to get those sent out. It was a little bit more of a hassle than I thought it was going to be. I had to find the right shipping containers, but those got sent out today. So the folks, the two fellows that won on the 4,000 giveaway, those are in the mail. And Toom, I know Toom's not here right now. Toom's going to take care of some personal business, but I got a package sent out to him, and my God, sending a package through USPS to Australia is like pulling freaking teeth. It was an ordeal, but those are sent out as well, Toom. So, you get some patches on the way. You guys familiar with the Ohio Grassman at all?
No.
Yep. I've seen
not in the slightest.
Seen several documentaries on it, and it's actually been on that favorite show we always love to talk about, Old Mountain Monsters, Ames.
Yeah.
Ames teams went after him a couple times.
Yeah. That show is well, it is what it is, I guess.
But if you watch that show strictly for entertainment purposes, it's okay. But if you don't completely and totally take that with a grain of salt, that it's staged from the start to the finish, then there's something wrong with you. Number one.
Yeah,
Number two, you're gonna miss the whole point of it. That's strictly for entertainment. But on a side note, did you know Buck was actually a corrections officer?
Didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of interesting. That show to me is like Duck Dynasty with cryptids.
Yeah, except Duck Dynasty, they're a lot more real than.
Well, because that's what they are.
Yeah,
it's not an act for those guys.
Especially Uncle Si. All right,
an interesting group of characters.
Yep.
The Ohio Grassman is kind of unique when it comes to Bigfoot, because I believe it's just a type of Bigfoot. But the unique part about is these weird structures they keep finding. They're like tall, like I don't want to say elephant grass, but tall grass that grows wild. And we've got some of it here in Missouri too, but I don't think it gets as tall. But up in Ohio, they have this really thick, heavy grass, which would like reedy type grass, which would be great if you made homemade baskets and stuff. But apparently these things are taking large swaths of this grass and making almost like an igloo out of them, like a dome. Mm-hmm. And sometimes these domes are 6-7 feet high. and it's woven grass woven together with a hole where they can crawl back in and use it like a den. And they've been finding these all over Ohio. It's not something I've ever heard of them finding here in Missouri. I don't know why it seems to be a regional adaptation in that area, but Ohio is the only place I've heard of them, unless any of y'all out there in the audience have heard anything about them being found anywhere else. But Ohio seems the only place that they make these.
Well, I think it's like we've talked about regional adaptation. Whatever.
Well, you use what's at hand. Yeah.
And just like what is it? What's that guy that out in Oklahoma that you base some of the one on the first wild hunt out of?
Oh yeah.
They find a lot of like those little shallow ridges that form down inside. They'll find like logs laid across that, and then another like this way, and then this way. So there's a lot of those
grass and leaves.
Yeah, a lot of those little shallow ditches, ridges, whatever you want to call them out there, but they don't find those any other place. So I mean, it's like you said,
down in Georgia, what they're finding is these hollowed out depressions underneath a riverbank.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you really start looking into stuff like that and looking into these specific habitats, because I know we've talked about them having large, areas that they operate in, but really the nesting / home, house, whatever you want to call it, their dwelling that they stay in, all of them are really different. If you sit back and think about it.
Well, Crystal McGee's in the house, and her husband's name's Chris, and I've known Chris since we were in middle school. And where Chris used to live up in Laclede County, we went into the woods across the road from his parents' farm, and we went back pretty far in the woods and found this old house just out in the middle of nowhere with a couple of rusted out cars and an old rusted out plow in front of it. And I wrote a short story kind of based on what happened, but the short story was kind of a little exaggerated because it was meant to be an entertaining short story. But the truth of it is Chris and I found this house in the woods, and the house had a lot of stuff left inside of it that was just abandoned. It was a 2-story house. There were no power lines run into this house. So this house had been built pre-1940 when the power lines went through in that section of the county. So not only is it off the beaten path, there's not a road to it. And it's all overgrown. We find this house, and we're walking around on the ground floor, and the floor is kind of busted through in some spots, and we kept seeing feces in the lower part of the house. And he's like, it's probably cows. I'm like, cows gone through that door. That door was narrow as hell. And he's like, it's got to be some sort of animal. And these were pretty good piles of scat. They weren't like little like you would expect to see with droppings from a raccoon or something like that. These were good-sized piles of large, ropey scat. And even in the kitchen, there was one of those old flat-top cast iron cook stoves, like my grandmother had in her kitchen for years. And even back then, let's say that had been abandoned since the 40s. In 1985 or 6, when we found it, that thing was in good shape. You could have taken it out, hauled it somewhere, cleaned it up, and went back to using it. It was just in that good a shape. Wasn't even rusted out that bad because it wasn't sitting by a window. But it was dirty, and but it was still completely intact. And that was an expensive item that people just wouldn't normally leave behind. Big old potbelly cast iron stove in the living room, also in good shape. Could have easily been hauled out, knock the rust off of it, and go right back to using it. And so I'm thinking this is really pretty odd. Well, Chris starts heading upstairs, and I'm like, those stairs ain't going to hold you. And he said, oh no, we'll be fine. Just hang on. These things seem pretty solid. So I followed him up the stairs, and unfortunately, yes, the stairs were pretty solid. I didn't have an excuse to bail out of there, but just something was ticking in the back of my head that I really didn't want to be in there. And I had a 12-gauge shotgun, and Chris was carrying a Ruger 1022. And we get to the top of the stairs, and there's still the furniture abandoned up here, like rotted out beds and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, they left a lot of shit behind when they left this house. And he's like, yeah. He said, I can't believe some of this stuff's in good shape. Like there was one of those old brass bed frames in there, but the mattress and stuff was all rotten. But the brass bed frame, other than being tarnished, looked like you could have, again, went in there and hauled that shit out of there and cleaned it up. Well, we go into one of the bedrooms off the top of the stairs, and guess what's in this bedroom? A woven nest about 6 feet across with little bones in it. And I'm like, what in the hell is that? He's like, I don't know. He's like, you think a bear did that? I'm like, no bear did that. What the hell made that?
That right
that
there is
like
time to get the hell out.
Yeah.
I was about to say, Noah, you're going to have to fill in for Doc. It's about half past time to get the hell out of here.
Right, yeah.
Well, then we hear this freaking snort from the woods, and we're like, would you look at the time? So we're beating feet down the stairs. Something hits the back of the house hard enough to shake it, and we cut the trail where we ran in on and just hauled ass out of there. And the whole time we could hear something in the woods as we made it back to the fence. But, of course, the short story is based on this, but it goes into a little more detail. And this is just kind of a Cliff's Notes version of that story. But I think something was living in that house, and I don't think it was human. And it had built this gigantic nest up on the second floor of this house. And like I said, the stairs were still solid. It was easily supported, but there was no feces upstairs. It was just downstairs. And
Wow.
we set record time getting back to his house.
Just hauling ass.
Yeah.
But see, there you go. That's using what you got, using what's in what they,
George Jennings says, if you go back, I want the stove and the potbelly heater. Hey, if I go back, I'm keeping them.
Those are mine.
I'd love to have one of, because it's going to take 9 men and a mule to move them heavy sons of guns. Edson the Kid Wilson, so why not go back to it? Well, we didn't own the land. Chris's family didn't own the land, and
we were trespassing.
Yeah, we were trespassing, and that's exactly it. We were just a couple of country kids, and we're like, it's a fence. We'll just hop it, and it wasn't our land. We couldn't find a gate to get back there. There was no way to get a truck back there. So if you were gonna bring one of those things out, you were gonna have to basically manpower that son of a gun through about a mile of woods to get it to any place you could get it in a vehicle. So yeah, we never went back. Crystal says, tell them about the truck story. Chris, I would like to have you tell that story. I really would. I need to have you come on and tell that story because I love that story, but I don't want to spoil the surprise. I would like to let you tell the story because I love the look on your face when we talk about that. Chris and I had some hairy moments as kids. We ran the backwoods of Laclede County, Pulaski County, Camden County, pretty much any county within 2 counties of Laclede County growing up. We were finding crap on backcountry roads. That's pretty much what we did. George says he's got a T-Rex, a 6x6 truck. Mark Napier says fences don't mean anything when you're a kid. That's a fact.
Also, if we ever go looking for something like that, I want something that's rated to hunt T-Rex.
I think I could find it again. Granted, it's been 35, almost 40 years ago.
I bet you somebody owns that property now.
Well, I guarantee somebody owns it, but I think it was bank property at the time, but I don't know for sure. But it wasn't like straight across from Chris's house. It was like down the road about a half mile to right where it turned, and then over the fence and down. And it's pretty far back there. I think I could find it again, but again, I have no idea who owns that land or who to even ask.
Over the river and through the woods.
That, and as a 14, 15-year-old kid, you could get away with saying, well, you're just squirrel hunting. And they're going, go ahead, get home. But a 50-year-old man hopping a fence, going back there with a rifle, yeah, they're probably going to get a little more than a slap on the wrist and told to go
We're
home.
out here looking for Bigfoot. And they're just like, get off of our property, you freaking weirdos.
Yeah. Well, I really like
we're
these
hunting
shiny
squirrels
bracelets.
with 458 SOCOMs.
Why do you have a 460 XVR to hunt squirrels with?
Big
They're
freaking
very
squirrels,
big
man.
Squirrels, sir.
Yeah.
Biggest freaking squirrels you've ever seen. Chew your head off.
Here.
Crystal McGee says Chris says he could find it again. Yeah, I think I could. I mean, honestly, even though, like I said, it was almost 40 years ago, I think I could go back there and find roughly the spot where we cut. Well, we didn't cut the fence, but we hopped the fence and went straight back into the woods. And what we did is we went just almost as straight as an arrow from the fence until it kind of went down into a depression and started coming back up. And that's when we found this old, well, you could tell had once been a road, but it was all completely overgrown. There were saplings and stuff in it. And this was in 84, 85, 86, somewhere around in there. I don't think I was old enough to drive. Chris was. So I bet I was probably about 15. Chris was 16. But then we saw that kind of where it was kind of an overgrown road, and we're like, hey, I wonder what the hell's up there. So we turned and went up the hill toward it, and we found the old plow first, and then we found a couple of junked out old vehicles, and that house probably caved in on itself by now. I mean, that was, like I said, that was 40 years ago, and it was in pretty rough shape then.
Probably not much of that left now.
Yeah. I wish we could have gotten back in there with his truck and got that potbelly stove and that old cooktop, because I'd love to have an old rustic cabin with both those in it.
Sure, why not? Let's just take the bones too. We'll just take everything.
No, I had no idea, no desire to go back up to that nest. But like I said, we'd need 6 men and a mule to get those things out of that house. We'd have to bust a wall probably because the porches were all rotted in and everything.
Dad really out here like, yeah, I would have loved to have that stove. Yeah, and that whatever thing made that nest would have loved to have had your flesh for lunch.
Ma'am Freddie says, can I ask a question? Y'all get the time. When do we get Wild Hunt 4? Well, just released the newest Wild Hunt. That actually technically is Wild Hunt 4.
That is that is 4.
Yeah, that's Wild Hunt 4. Codename Wild Hunt Death and Dyatlov Pass just came out. Lene just posted the link. It came out not even 2 weeks ago. The next in the rotation is going to be a book I like that we're calling the new series Dark Frontiers. It's another monster hunting series, but it's set in 1865. I'm about 35,000 words into that project already. It's running pretty fast. Really liking the direction this story is taken. It's going to be like the gunfight at the OK Corral meets Codename Wild Hunt. It's going to be like that. Judy McKee Smith says, I read it. It's great. Thank you so much. Lost my train of thought. Completely derailed it. But what I was telling that story about that house in the woods was just another type of nesting. And I think that's what the Grassman is. I think it's just a regional type of nesting.
Yeah. Now, wasn't there one video that was saying they thought that Momo and the Grassman might be the same or one and the same type?
Well, I would say they're very, considering how close Louisiana, Missouri is in above St. Louis. It's quite a ways from Southwest Missouri. So it's actually, as the crow flies across Illinois and into Ohio, it's actually closer to the Grassman than it would be to us here in Southwest Missouri, because it's a pretty good drive. So I can definitely see how they could be maybe some at least contact between the two of them. But again, I've never heard of them finding one of those grass-like structures here in Missouri.
Yeah.
And Jimmy G says, have we touched on exactly what the Grassman of Ohio is? So it's not a dispensary. No, it's not a dispensary. We believe it's a type of Bigfoot. The reason they call it the Grassman is because it makes structures out of this thick, dense grass. Oh, Northwoods, dude. We got Northwoods without a comment about his ex. This is awesome. He says, when I got my copy of Death and Dyatlov Pass, I couldn't put it down. I read the whole thing in less than 8 hours. Dude, that is awesome. Thank you.
Yep. It's a good book.
Camo Dad 72 says, hey, D, I just started reading the Lakeview Man series. Thumbs up so far. That's awesome, brother. Thank you so much.
Naomi says she thinks, yeah, that's what I was just about to.
Well, the big muddy monster is in southern Illinois, which, as the crow flies, is just across the Mississippi River from where Momo was seen. Louisiana's up in that area. Oddly enough, Hannibal, Missouri's up in that area too, what they refer to as the Hound of Hannibal. But the topography of that part of Missouri is very different than the topography down here in the Ozarks.
Well, we've hit something that we've always talked about is caving systems, and thinking some of these creatures use caves. What if they all use caves though, for the most part? But then when they're out on their,
What if they're like subterranean and just kind of come out to hunt?
well, no, I mean, yeah, that's a good theory. But where I was getting with
Caves
that
is like hiding places and
Yeah.
tunnels to
but
travel.
if they're out traveling and there's no cave around, that's when they make these structures.
Every type of animal's got to have some sort of shelter from the
Typically,
bad
they would
weather.
look for, because you think about a lot of these structures, they do kind of resemble a cave, or what a cave would. It's not like it's just a lean-to type structure. It's something that they can get in. They're covered most of them anyway. They're covered on all sides, just like they would be in a cave. So maybe that's something that they typically would like to move or live in a cave. But when they're out moving and they can't find one,
It's great shelter. Louis Noriega says, we found a roadhouse on the north side of Big Bear Lake in the area called Tanglewood Campground that was fenced off, and houses the door looked like it was kicked in, like no one lived there, but you could see traces of people walking through it to get inside the house, and it stunk and had a musty smell. Ooh. We'll never know what might have been living there. And Kirsch says, I like the new book, interesting development. Think those were hinted at in a previous one. Forget which book. Was the pier scene with those two guys who had to deal with a creature that attacked? Yeah, I think the scene you're talking about was at the end of toward the end of Curse of the Wendigo.
Now, following up on what Robbie was saying, I mean, we're talking about something that clearly shows a distinct level of intelligence. And I mean, like, as far as like how we perceive distinct intelligence, I mean, look at humans, right? We're always trying to find a safer way for transport, right? Mm-hmm. So in theory, this cave system could be their safer way of transport, because I mean, like, think about it. You delve deep enough into a cave, you no longer have to worry about mountain lions. You no longer have to worry about other predators stealing your food. You can kill something out in the wild and take it deep into the cave where nothing else dares to go.
Well, they've suspected that the cave systems throughout Missouri actually connect to the mammoth cave systems in Tennessee and Kentucky. And they already know the mammoth cave systems reach as far north as Maine.
Yeah.
I mean,
so, yeah, and like I said, everything is just theory and conjecture, obviously. But if they're caught above ground, so to speak, they need to make a shelter, a temporary shelter, because that's what I think. A lot of these shelters you find, they're temporary. They're not built to withstand, a long period of time. Oh yeah, some of them probably, like the one in Oklahoma, maybe that are made out in those gullies and washouts and things like that. But like a lot of these nests for the Grassman, they're not going to stand up more than probably a couple of weeks at the most.
Reckon it might be like not necessarily like housing, but more so like a hunting blind?
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say.
An Airbnb that we would use. You travel somewhere, you don't want to go stay in a big hotel for an extended period of time. You just want to stop for a day or two. You get a room at one of these little places. It's just, temporary, and then you're on your way on your hunting your hunting trip, whatever, that you're following the game, and that's where that's where you stop for the night and set up your camp. That's
kind of what I was thinking. But what if it's an observation blind, just so they can watch whatever they're hunting? Robert Miller's in the house. What's up, Sentinel?
Hey, Sentinel.
And Louis Noriega had another good comment. He said, "There's an old house in Big Bear that was abandoned on the north side of Tanglewood Campground." Oh, that was okay. You could see stuff walking into the house. Okay, he was just elaborating on that last one. Gypsy Vampirella says, "Y'all don't think there's anything living within?" I think it's very possible that if there's abandoned houses in the woods, that they're smart enough to use those as shelter. There's lots of stories of farmers going out to check their animals in the barn and finding one in their barn. These things aren't stupid, and they're going to find places that they can get in out of the elements just like any other animal. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen where deer have bedded down under the overhang of a rock to avoid the rain. I mean, their animals aren't stupid. Nothing like just sitting out there with the rain pouring down on them. nothing likes being out and just stuck in the snow, unless you're that husky mix we had years ago when my wife and I first got married, and that son of a gun would live in the snow if you'd have let him. Mark Napier says, I did some spelunking when I was younger. Kentucky's eat up with caves. So is Missouri.
I wonder if and this is pure speculation here, right? But I wonder if it even stretching as general as any Bigfoot, really. I wonder if the reason why people aren't able to find them all that much is because people are looking in the woods for them, and I wonder if they're like a hybrid subterranean species. They live underground, but they come out to hunt.
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly account for their night vision being much better than their day vision.
Because if they're strictly a subterranean species, like take like bats for example, right? Their sight is not good. Like bats can't see like at all. They use echolocation to navigate because they're subterranean. They live underground for the most part. So what's the use in being able to see if there's nothing to see, right? So that's why I think that they might be possibly kind of like a hybrid subterranean species where they come out to hunt but live in these caves because there's just not enough food in the caves for them. But
right,
I mean that would explain why people going out in the woods don't always find what they're looking for, or in most cases don't find what they're looking for. And it would explain far more of, missing 411 accounting for these cave systems, because, we're talking about something that will take its prey and drag it off to a cave instead of something that's just going to feast on it out in the woods.
Well, there was that case
where the bodies go.
And I want to say Cam Buckner was the one that put the story on. But there was a team that were mapping out a section of Mammoth Cave. And mapping underground is a lot more difficult than mapping above ground, because if you're going to go farther and farther back in these caves, it's not like you can have somebody airdrop you in supplies. Mm-hmm. You've got to establish base camps, fully equip the base camp, and then use that to move farther in, set up another base camp, fully equip the base camp so you can move farther in. It's not like you can just, take a day's worth of trail rations and a torch and go exploring these caves, because some of them go way back there, miles and miles. Well, apparently this group, it was from the U.S. Geological Survey, got about 3 days in and started finding bones.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about that before. To mount an excursion or an expedition in these caves would be a huge undertaking. But if you could get just like really far back in these caves, there's no telling what you'd find, because you're going to have to make these little stopping points every so often, because you can only go so far at a time, and you're going to have a supply line set up where you can constantly have supplies coming to you. Because a lot of these caves, like you said, it would take probably weeks to explore even probably half of it.
Yeah, and it's like, you go that deep into a cave and you start finding bones. It's like, okay, maybe we should turn back and come back a little more prepared. Otherwise, we're going to join this pile of bones.
Northwoods had a question. He says, anything ever been found in those nests that would indicate a nursery of some kind? The one that Chris and I found in that old house, the only thing in it was like small bones, like squirrel and rabbit. No, there was no big bones like you'd find a femur on a cow. They were small bones of small animals. So rabbit bones, and in some of the scat, there were like small teeth, like it was just eating chunks. Which is a good sign of a large predator right there. It's they were like small, like pointy teeth and stuff in the stool, because I was poking it with my buck knife. But in the nest itself, I didn't see anything that would be any sign of like you were saying, a nursery. But there were definitely signs of it eating something there. But there was no scat on the upper level; it was all on the lower level.
Oh, I mean, like look at the behavior of dogs. You don't crap where you sleep. You don't crap where you eat.
Right. Camo Dad 72 says, so I heard a story today about a bunch of guys in the Army lighting up a dead APC with 50 cal at a range and having a Bigfoot run out of it. Talk about interrupting Bigfoot's nap time. Yeah, I can see now that sounds like something that would happen on Fort Leonard Wood. Because out on some of those heavy weapons ranges on Leonard Wood, they've got all kinds of old equipment out there. To use as targets, especially AT4s and law rocket targets. But there's a lot of that old equipment out there that gets shot up.
And they just throw it over to the sappers and the engineers and be like, "Hey, get this thing running, sort of again." And they're like, "Okay."
No, they just drag it out there so you can shoot at it. Kirst says this cave diving exploration sounds like an idea for a future book for your series, DA. Lots of work and preparation. No more folks can't. Yeah, I think that's not a bad idea. I could see that happening. Oh yeah. Yep. Crystal says the dog. I forgot about that. Chris had 2 dogs. They were named like Molly and Ollie or something like that, and they just opened the back door and go Ollie, 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 Ollie. Both dogs, come running. It was the German Shepherd, which I think was Molly, that followed us into the woods and refused to go into that house.
I mean, they'd be able to smell something like that.
Yeah, it would not go in the house. Robert Miller, super sticker. Thank you, brother. Much appreciated, dude.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Richard Cox says an Abrams tank is said to have almost ran over a Bigfoot at Fort Stewart. Another place that would be woolly enough would be Fort Stewart, Georgia. That place is 1 foot in the swamp. Fort Benning is about the same. These are some woolly areas. If there's going to be a post where you're going to get a Bigfoot story coming out of, and there are quite a few Bigfoot stories coming out of
the middle of ass crack of nowhere.
Yeah, you're on the corner of no and where. Jeffrey Quinlan says, wouldn't you think that cavers would have come up on them, though? Maybe they did. Not
maybe
only
that's
that,
where those bones came from.
And they didn't start finding these bones until like 3 days back. And it's extremely rare that a caver gets that far because the money, time, and preparation it goes into getting that far into a cave is astronomical. It would take weeks and weeks of planning to set up your drop points for supplies to get you that far back into a cave. Your average day caver, like I did when I was a much thinner young man, when I used to run around, all over God's green earth around McLeod County looking for old caves. When I was doing that, we took like 2 or 3 sources of light and a bottle of water. We didn't plan on staying more than a few hours. And that's, I've never been farther back in a cave than about a mile. And that's pretty far back. That was in, I think it was called, Pig Demon Cave. Pig Demon Cave out by Eldridge, Missouri. Naomi says trapped between a no and a where spot and nothing in between.
Dude, I would hate to be one of the people on that team first discovering those bones. Just that feeling of, oh shit, what did we just stumble upon? Being the first guy in the door at that point.
Well, there was a guy down near Eminence, Missouri, kept having cattle go missing, and he called the Missouri Department of Conservation, like calves, and occasionally like a yearling would go missing, and he called the Missouri Department of Conservation. He called game warden, anybody he could get to come out there. He's like, something's taking my livestock. So they started tracking back where whatever it was making a trail coming up to where his cattle was. And they followed it back to a cave way out in the woods. And they said the cave was like in the little depression that went into the side of the hill. And the path leading up to the cave was littered with bones. And the Missouri Department of Conservation guys are like, let's get out of here. Don't ever come back here. Stay the hell away from this cave. And he said for days after that, there were lots of trucks going back that direction, and they didn't lose any more cattle.
Well, Cam's read several stories on his channel from former game wardens who, were like, okay, we've been retired for a couple of years or, 10, 15 years, whatever the case may be. So now we want to tell our story. And, a lot of them say that it's a known fact, especially like U.S. fishing game, that that's like a known fact. And if they come across that, there's a certain number that they're supposed or whatever. There's a certain group that works for U.S. Fish and Game that specializes in coming in when situations like that arise for cryptids.
Judy McKee Smith said, did they say what type of bones? If I remember from the account, they were saying mostly large ungulates like elk, deer. It was somewhere in Kentucky, so I don't know what else big ungulates are in that area, but it was mostly like prey animals. But I guess once they saw it, they were like, let's back out of here. They didn't start digging through to see what kind of animals there were. In theory, there could have been human bones in it, because they said strewn among it was Robert, you remember what they were saying? They were strewn among it was like backpacks and old camping equipment.
Yeah.
People that had probably gone missing in that area.
Yep. Yeah, it wasn't like it was like different. Each backpack was probably in like a different state of decomposing. Is like, this one might be a week old, but you got one over here that was like 3 or 4 months old, and this one was probably a year old. It was not like it was, somebody found 5 backpacks from 5. It was like all of them were in different
like
stages.
Some people had set up camp in there. It's like those backpacks were moved there.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just had to pop my shoulders. That shit felt awful. Oh. Ah, man, like I can only imagine being the first one in the door at that point. You know what I mean?
If I'd have been the first one through the door and saw old camping equipment and backpacks and bones everywhere, that would have been officially screw this crap o'clock.
I mean, like, you guys are more than welcome to press on, but I'll be at the mouth of the cave. You can come find me when you're done in here. I'm going home.
Northwood says, if I ever go to Mammoth Cave again, I don't care. If it's not allowed, I'm going to be carrying concealed. Problem with that is discharging a firearm inside a cave is never a great idea, because you're going to deafen yourself.
You're going to deafen everybody.
You better have some good ear protection.
You better make sure you bring your pros. Not only that, you're going to have some pretty serious chance of ricochets.
Yeah, and it's not just going to be the first initial crack. It's going to be all them echoing cracks after that too.
Yeah. Jimmy G says 300 blackout suppressed. That might do the trick. But then you're still going to have to worry about ricochets.
Like a freaking honey badger with a soft shot down in there. The
war 300 blackout with a silencer. I know a guy.
And bring the honey badger down there with soft rounds, and you can bring the old war crime stick down there. Whatever's coming after you ain't coming after you for long.
Get whatever you're gonna do. You probably want to do it suppressed, because anything any loud gunfire in the cave is going to be deafening.
Yep. But I think the cave thing is, I think it's more of a plausibility than a lot of people realize. Seemed like somebody wrote that in a book one time. I can't remember where I read that from, but some author made that a story one time in a book. And it
another thing about the Mammoth Cave systems, they're right there throughout Kentucky and Tennessee, but Ohio is just across the river from Kentucky.
Could have been
Grassman. Ohio River. Mark Napier says, when I did cave rescue, I never saw any large bones, just small animals, but some of the guys that had been at it longer than me said they've seen some large game and cattle bones. How the hell did they get back in a cave?
Jimmy said, honestly, I don't care if I'm carrying a short-barreled Krinkov. I'm underground running into cryptids. I'm mag dumping, hearing be damned.
Juliana McGill says, I get crap all the time going by myself, but honestly, my dogs are better to keep my butt safe. Always pay attention to your dogs. Always.
Oh yeah.
If your dog is alerting and warning you, there's something Chris and I should have figured out when that dog didn't want to go in the house. We should have went, you know what? Maybe there's something in there we shouldn't do.
Avoid this.
The dog's like, no. Good luck, best of luck to you though. I'll be halfway to the house by the time you come out. Edward Kung Fu Mashburn says, "Hey DA, how's Anthony and Doc doing?" Anthony's doing okay. He's having some medical issues. If you guys will keep him in your prayers, but Doc's just busy. I mean, they've got a lot of orders at the shop that they're trying to get out, and he may join us here in a little bit, or he said he'll at the very least he will definitely join us on Saturday. But it's a good thing when Dark Angel's busy.
Yeah.
These veteran-owned companies can really use our support.
And a lot of people don't realize, DA, it's just him and one other person packing those kits, right?
I'm sorry,
right,
what?
DA? I said a lot of people don't realize it's just him and one other person packing up those kits too.
Right, there's just the two of them that pack out those orders. Sometimes Angie goes and helps, but for the most part, it's just him and I believe it's his son-in-law. Papa Bear says, I didn't get to ask earlier because I was driving, but when's the next Man's Marauders coming out? Working on the plotting for Man's Marauders 2. I'm hoping to have it out by this fall. I've got a lot of projects to get out ahead of it. It looks like if things, knock on wood, if things go as planned, I may have the manuscript for Dark Frontiers in edits in a couple of weeks, because I've only been working on it. I just released the new book 2 weeks ago, and I'm already 35,000 words into this one.
Yeah, you're rolling on that one pretty good.
He's been thinking about this one for a while, so
yeah, I'm really enjoying writing it.
The ideas are just flowing.
Oh, I've got plenty of ideas. Oh, I was gonna show everybody something. I've got to find it real fast. Guys, talk amongst yourselves. I've got to find this.
No, you're out for the cave exploration then, right? That's what you're saying.
Oh no, hell no, I'll go.
You still stay at the front of the cave and say, "How y'all doing?"
No, I mean like if we're going hunting, like going down into a cave, I'll go. But somebody's checking for scorpions first. Somebody's in front of me to look for scorpions. I'm terrified of the bastards. You guys go on ahead. Make sure there's no scorpions. I see one, it's getting shot.
I don't like scorpions either. That's a fair deal. I don't mind. I was coming up with ideas for a logo for the series.
I got the little Pest Control 22 varmint rifle for that.
For this new dark frontiers, and I was looking for something that was going to be the overall symbol, because it really centers around the main character, Declan Kane. And I know then you guys like the sci-fi or the Man's Marauders, you'll recognize that last name Kane, and it's there for a reason. The stories do connect through history, but the main character's named Declan Kane, and he earns himself the nickname Widowmaker as a gunfighter. And I thought about this as the overall symbol for the series.
I like that.
Now, granted, that's not final. That's just something I roughed together with clip art from the internet. I'll have to have this redone and done by hand. And this is just a rough idea.
God bless clip art.
Yeah, that's just clip art I found and kind of threw together. But Adam Shepard, that does all my cover art and stuff, is going to work up one that I can copyright, and it'll be made into patches. But it's going to be very similar to that. That's the concept art. But that's gonna be the symbol for the series. Chisk 3 says, a bunch of things that y'all were talking about I've experienced in the Pine Barrens, especially near a ruined World War I ammo factory. Could they travel that far underground? Oh, absolutely. They believe that the Mammoth Cave systems that they've discovered in Kentucky and Tennessee connect as far north as Maine. So that's running right past. That's running right past New Jersey.
Yeah, you talk about a spooky place. The Pine Barrens is a spooky place.
I thought you were just going to say New Jersey, and I was like, fair.
Never been to the Pine Barrens, but I would like to. Sherry Porter says, we had a lot of scorpions at our last house in Arizona. So far, I've not seen any here in Oklahoma. Did see a tarantula here. We had those in the Arizona desert, too.
We get pretty decent scorpions here in Missouri, mostly in caves, but I read a lot of pest control reports in Springfield, and people get them in their basements because it's dark, it's damp. A lot of people end up with scorpions in their basements.
I can't remember. I was watching one of those documentaries like people have obsessions with strange pets or whatever.
Hmm.
And this guy had, I can't remember what they call it, but the little small scorpions that are really deadly, the ones that show
Bark
up on a
scorpions?
black light, huh?
Are those bark scorpions or no? Bark scorpions
Might be.
are desert scorpions. They're pretty decent size.
These are the ones that are just super dangerous. One of them stinging you can kill you. And they show up, they glow under UV light.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
all of them will. All scorpions will fluoresce under ultraviolet light.
Well,
Apparently,
this cat had about 200 of these things, and I think one of them killed him or something. And so that I remember the animal control specialist going over there, and they turned the lights off and just put a bunch of big black lights around so they could find them. And they turned those black lights on, and it was just the floor was just made of scorpions.
oh,
You couldn't see them with the lights on until you turn those black lights on. I was
don't
like,
like that.
That's when you take a step back and
"Oh,
go,
look at the time."
take a step back and go, Jimmy, get the diesel.
Somebody get me a grenade, please.
Get me 5 gallons of diesel fuel and come right back.
Anybody got a bottle of
Mitchell
liquor
says
they
you
don't
guys
care
are-
about?
Billy Mitchell says you guys are funny, not scared of cryptids, but run from scorpions.
Yeah, dude, I'm terrified of a thing yay big that can kill me with one little, I'm terrified of those little suckers. Something that's 2 times my height, like 4 times my strength, brother. I will shoot that sucker, right? It's easy to shoot that target. Tiny little thing that can hit me in the ankle and just kill me just like that. Nah, dog. Nah. Them little fuckers. Nah, not me.
Porky Means asks us, DA, did you ever get any info on the Dogman case from Texas? I think you said Dumas, Texas was the town. I heard, I've not been able to corroborate that story. I heard it the one time from somebody, and I have not been able, if anybody lives anywhere near Dumas, Texas, if you can corroborate the story for me, because it's far better to have somebody in the area to go, yeah, the locals are talking about this, than it is to find another mention of it online, because they could just be quoting the original source. But supposedly what happened was some deputies and some, I think it was Border Patrol. No, not Border Patrol, because Dumas isn't a border town. I think it was deputies and Texas game wardens got into it with a group of dogmen outside Dumas. And supposedly there was another incident in Paladoro Canyon, which is closer to Amarillo. So there's supposedly been several, dogman aggressive encounters with law enforcement, but nobody's talking about it. So if anybody lives in the panhandle of Texas and you can corroborate that story, contact me at daroberts@daroberts.net, because I would love to get some sources on that and find out if it's more than just rumor. Because sometimes these stories that sound awesome turn out to be just internet rumor, but sometimes they are corroborated, and those are the ones that terrify me.
Even the dogmen
Eric,
were not stupid enough to mess with Walker.
Eric in your chat said,
Roundhouse kick him to death.
he said scorpion's good eating from what he hears. I've had scorpion. It's very tasty, but I don't want to meet face to face with one. Particularly don't want to meet face to face with one if it's bigger than me. But
Papa Bear says, I'll gladly kiss a dog man on the nose before I deal with spiders and scorpions. I hated those things in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't like spiders.
Yeah, arachnophobia runs deep.
Hey, Shane. Shane's in the house. What's up, brother?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yep. What's up, Shane?
Sherry Porter says, scorpions sneak into your bed. When I lived down in New Mexico, you had to shake your boots out before you put them on. Up here in Missouri, you don't really run into the scorpions, but if you don't check your bedding or clothes that have been hanging in the closet for a hot minute, you've got to check them for brown recluses, and that's, to me, just as bad, if not worse.
I got to check my suits for brown recluses every now and then. Basically just smack the shit out of the suit, turn the sleeves inside out.
Trying to see if I missed any questions. Jimmy G says, Noah, remind me to tell you about the time I saw a Mimi sometime. That was a creepy day.
I mean, I'm sure Dad would love to hear that story. If it's like a cryptid or something.
Definitely.
Like
Chairman Meow says, did they shoot any of the dogmen in that incident? If you mean the one outside Dumas, from what I was told, it was. They shot the hell out of them, but they didn't put any of them down. Mopar Bill says I live in Amarillo, 35 miles south. If you can find out, Mopar Bill, if you can find out anything about this, ask around if you know anybody that works in law enforcement or somebody that's into the cryptids in your area. If you can corroborate either of those stories, one from near Dumas that involved Texas game wardens and some county deputies from near Dumas, and another one supposedly happened in Paladoro Canyon. These were dogman encounters with law enforcement. The first case near Dumas, I believe a rancher reported cattle. Something was attacking his cattle, and game wardens came out there and they asked for the local sheriff to back them up, and they ended up running into a group of dogmen. And I think it was something similar in Paladero Canyon. I want to say a horse was attacked, and they went in and ended up running into a group of dogmen. So if you can corroborate either of those stories, if you can find somebody that says, yeah, I know who that happened to, or you can just, say, verify that people are telling that story in the area, I want to know that it's not just an internet rumor. So if you hear substantiation of those stories, that anybody's talking about those stories, email me at daroberts@daroberts.net and let me know. Because at that point I will consider those verified stories. Let me put my email up. Here we go. Reach out to me at daroberts@daroberts.net. Because if those stories are true, I've got a brother that doesn't live too far from there. He lives in a little town called Clayton, New Mexico, which is about 70, 80 miles from Dumas. And I've been wanting to go down and visit him anyway. So, that might be an excuse this summer to go visit my brother and head over to Dumas.
What was we talking about that we heard that some of the Border Patrol agents got into it with a group of dogmen?
Oh, there was a story out of Arizona where apparently a group of cartel were bringing drugs across the border, and they basically ran into a group of dogmen, and the Border Patrol responded because they heard automatic weapons fire. And when they got there, they found like 15 dead cartel men who'd been torn to shreds. Their weapons were there, a bunch of expended ammo, and they didn't find a single dogman. But they found tracks. So be careful what you shoot at, I guess.
That's one way to get rid of the drug problem.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Forrest says the new video released of an upright bipedal being walking up mountain in deep snow is amazing. Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Farmington location. I will check that out. That sounds like right up my line.
If automatic
Meg is absolutely right. If you guys have a question, please put it in caps so it'll be easier for me to spot.
If automatic weapons fire didn't put one of them suckers down, I'm loading silver. I'm loading silver shot.
That's what Robbie and I have talked about. I think when you're talking about an animal that can weigh upwards to 800 to 1,000 pounds is super bulky, I don't think it's a problem that normal bullets won't put them down. I think it's a point that they're carrying too light of ammunition to punch through to do any serious damage. Like that grizzly bear they killed in Denali had 6 .38 caliber slugs lodged in its sternum. And when they cut it open, they found the gun and the guy that shot it.
Well, and it's you can take a 30-30 and shoot a charging rhino, and a 30-30 is just going to bounce off of it. But 30-30 is not.
30-30, yeah, 30-30 is a good size round. You shoot a Cape Buffalo with a 30-30, it's going to keep coming, and then it's going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
They say those guys that hunt Cape Buffalo, those guys train for years before they'll go hunt Cape Buffalo because it's the most dangerous animal in the world to hunt. If you shoot it and you don't put it down, it will come kill you.
Yeah. So I mean, I and we've had those discussions so many times before about most of the legends and the lore have some little grain of truth to it. Somewhere, sometime, somebody has that this has happened. They just maybe got a lucky shot with a silver load, and that's where everything started. Just personal opinion on it or something like that. Somebody
you also got to keep
a lucky shot.
That silver is a lot softer of a metal than lead or whatever other shot people are using. So I mean, like, you put a silver shot into something, it's probably not coming out the other side.
Yeah, it's going to stay in and do some damage.
So I mean, like,
Well, what we were saying is the same thing I've said in the books. Robbie and I have talked about this, and Anthony as well, and Doc. Is the problem with shooting something that weighs that much and is that dense, like a Bigfoot or a Dogman, is if you're carrying a 223, you're probably not going to punch it. Even a 30-30 may not, depending on how the density of their bones. That's why in the books I've said this, and that's why I'll say it again here. You want to shoot for big artery clusters. If the skull is that thick, I wouldn't try a headshot unless you're lucky and hit it through an eye, or if you can put it through the mouth and hit the brainstem. This area right here, snipers refer to it as the apricot. You hit the apricot, and odds are you're just turning the computer off. Pinocchio's strings just got cut. But if you have to defend yourself against one of these things, and they were that big, hit big artery groups. You've got the femoral in the throat. They're going to bleed out from a femoral shot. You've got the brachial plexus that runs through the inner upper arms and in the armpit. You hit those large bleeds right there in the upper arm, you can bleed them out. Anything in the pelvic girdle is going to bleed like a son of a gun. And then you've got the femorals that run through the thighs. You hit any of those big artery groups, and it's going to bleed. It's going to bleed out.
Yeah, and like I said, I think the silver is just one of those things that, back when you really started having the werewolf legends and stories, really, like the Beast of Gévaudan and Peter Stoop and all that. That's what stuff. Silver was considered to be pure, and these werewolves were considered to be of the devil, and so you had to have something pure that was blessed by a priest. So, like I said, things get stretched out. The truth gets distorted, I guess, for lack of a better term. And, one thing leads to another, and pretty soon it's, only thing you can kill a werewolf with is silver bullets.
Yeah. Well, it's, how stories get started.
And again, it falls into that metal is going to expand when it enters into the body. So, I mean, like, using those high caliber, high powder rounds back then, those things punched through everything. You know what I mean? Like, you're sending that round through. Hell, when I bought my revolver, the gun store that sold it to me, the guy behind the counter was like, yeah, if they're wearing anything short of a level 3 plate, this is going through. So, I mean, like, if that'll go through a level 3 plate, it'll go through practically anything that I want it to, right? Versus silver shot, which is super soft, it goes in and it just hyper compresses and just goes everywhere. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's where a lot of the theory that silver is what you need to use on these monsters comes from.
Mm-hmm. But shooting one aside, folks, I do not advocate shooting one of these things.
Yeah, you should piss it off.
The times I go out and do research, I am not looking to bag one. I have no desire to be the guy that drags one in for science. If I can prove the existence of these things through collection of DNA or good photography, I'm not talking red circles, what I refer to as bullshitography. Those red circle photos do more damage to the field than they do good because there's nothing in them ever. But I could go out and take a picture of the bush in my backyard and draw a couple red circles on it, and there's going to be people swear they see Bigfoot in it, even though there's a house behind that bush. So I think red circle photos just do more damage to the field than they do good. And I'm sorry if that upsets some folks. That's just how I feel about it. If you've got a picture that's legitimately got something in it, great. But if it's just a bush, it's just a bush. And no amount of, where's Waldo is going to find Bigfoot in that photo. But I think it's going to be clear photography or good DNA or track samples that's going to bring this thing in. Dragging one in for science, I don't think it's going to prove anything because I think the government's known they exist for a very, very long time. So again, I'm not advocating going out and killing one of these things. When I talk about where I would shoot one, it's where I would shoot one in self-defense or defending someone else that I was with. I've got no desire to try to kill one of these things, and I think that they can sense that. I think when you go out, if your intent is to do harm, if you're looking for one to kill one, I think they're going to pick up on that. And I don't think it's like any great secret. Walk up to a dog with bad intent, and the dog is going to know it. It's not that the dog's got any extra ESP or anything like that. It's not telepathic. It just senses your intent. How many times have you had a dog run at you like it's going to bark at you, jerk your hand back like you got a rock in your hand, and your dog will put the brakes on like, he's got a rock. Dogs sense intent. And I don't always trust people that don't like dogs, but I always trust dogs that don't like people. There's generally a reason. So again, if you're wanting to use that as an example, dogs are great. Great for sensing character, but it just kind of goes to prove my point that animals can sense your intent. I can't tell you the number of times I've been out, like just spotting, like in the woods, looking to spot deer. Hey, Bart Nunnally subscribed. Thanks, Bart. Appreciate you, brother.
How's it going, Bart? Good to see you, man.
But I can't tell you the number of times I've been out and all I had was a camera with me, and there'd be 300 freaking deer milling around. But you step out in that same spot with a rifle, and it's a ghost town. Robbie, have you ever had that happen to you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or driving along in your patrol car?
Oh, that works for any and everything. If I'm in my personal vehicle, people running stop signs, people running red lights, people flicking stuff out the windows. When I'm in a patrol car, everybody's perfect.
Makes everybody nervous. They're doing everything they can.
I got plenty of people, plenty of buddies who are turkey hunters. I see turkeys all year until turkey season. Then you see turkey season, and that's the most extinct animal on the face of the earth.
Well, we were just down in Eureka Springs, Arkansas over the weekend. My wife and Steve Monroda, Steve that is usually on weekends, and his wife Rachel. We were down in Eureka Springs. We went down and ate at the Rockin' Pig Saloon, which was so good. Worked our drive just down there for that pulled pork. Oh my God, it was amazing. But that's not the subject I was wanting to get on. I wasn't trying to turn this into the food hour. But when we went up to, they've got a giant statue of Jesus up on the hill overlooking the city. And you can go up there and tour the area. And they've got a passion play they have up there. But you can see the Crescent Hotel straight across the valley from that statue. But the whole time we were up there, man, turkeys was just going crazy. But I guarantee you, if that had been, if I'd have gone up there and had permission to hunt, it would have been as quiet as the proverbial tomb.
Oh man. I don't have that experience. I don't have that experience you guys do. Things don't get quiet around me. I just see people make stupid decisions. I'm like, oh, you fucking moron.
But yeah, well, my brother was the same way till like 2 years ago. He was like, I'm like, Jason, you know that there are deer out there in the woods, right? He goes, nope, I don't believe them. I don't believe deer exist until I actually shoot one. He said, because every time I go out in the woods, I don't see, hear, or even smell a deer. I said, you're with me when he said, I don't care. That's a figment of your imagination. Until he finally shot one. He's like, I don't believe them things exist. But you know that's a mindset of a lot of people with Bigfoot. They're not, it doesn't matter how much and there again, my brother's a good example. My brother believes me, trusts me with his life because he was a reserve with us, but does not believe in Bigfoot. Even though my dad and I both have had encounters, he just doesn't believe it. No matter how much he trusts the person that's telling him the story, he doesn't believe it. And that, there's a lot of people like that like you said many times, no amount of convincing is gonna convince them.
Well, hey man, we live in the show me state, That's the mentality people got around here is I ain't gonna believe it until you show me.
Yeah. Miss Lene says they're getting really heavy storms rolling through her area. If she disappears, she ain't a missing 411.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know if these things are able to like sense us and sense that we're intending to hunt one, or if it's just like you're going out looking for one, you just don't find one, you know? But I mean, I know there's been a lot of instances where people have gone out specifically looking for one and came back completely empty-handed. And I wonder if that has something to do with them living in caves.
It very well could.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but when you start thinking about the way you find these structures, just a lot of them just like randomly in the middle of nowhere with no rhyme or reason to where they would, where or why they would be there.
Just kind of like a temporary thing.
Yeah, that's.
Well, and you also got to keep in mind, like if these things are hominids, right? If these things are like us, you know, they have a very large brain compared to other animals, you know, compared to the brain of a deer, compared to the brain of a bear. You know, these are animals that have large brains. And what comes with having a large brain is, at least in most cases, I won't say in every case, intelligence. And if you're out in the woods and you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I need to make myself somewhere to live. You're going to make yourself something temporary, but you're going to look for something more permanent. What's a more permanent solution out in the wilderness? Caves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at smaller creatures.
Unless they're below the level of a body of water, they're probably not going to flood.
Yeah. And look at smaller creatures. Look at moles. Look at what's another burrower, right? These things are literally making their own caves to live in.
Prairie dogs.
Yeah, exactly. These things are making their own caves to live in. So what's to say that something large like that isn't just going and living in a cave? It would make much more sense than it just being out in the woods, because you'd notice a structure that would accommodate something that large.
Well, it's just like the map we pulled up, you know, with the missing 411 overlaid with the cave systems.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how much of a matchup do you have to? I mean, it almost completely perfectly matches up.
Yeah,
makes you wonder. You go into some of these caves, you're probably gonna find human remains.
Very well could. How many times do Native Americans use caves as burial chambers?
Mm-hmm.
And if people are saying, you may say, why don't we find a Bigfoot body in the woods? I've been in the woods of Missouri in and out pretty much my whole life, and I have never once come across a bear skeleton. That's not saying it doesn't happen. People do, but if these things are as smart as we think they are, what's to say they're not doing what the Native Americans did? They're either burying their dead or taking them way below ground where we're not going to find them.
Who's to say they didn't learn from the Native Americans? Seeing the Native Americans burying their dead in caves, they're like, wow, that's actually a good idea. All right,
exactly.
Let's just start doing that then.
Well, we know they're using the same herbs that the natives did for medicines. Ma'am Freddy says, hey, DA, I love your writing. I wasn't a reader until I heard your book on Cam's channel. Then I got Kindle and read all your books. Thank you for being you. Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed the books. Blondes and Boo says, DA, are there many Dogman or Bigfoot sightings around Onondaga Cave? I've got a couple of guys I need to talk to about that. You may already know them. It's the guys that have the Horror Chronicles show. They've got the Horror Chronicles podcast. They've got a lot of stories up in that area because they're from Rolla. I need to talk to them and check with a couple other people I know that live in that area. But it wouldn't surprise me. You really wouldn't, because I know there are quite a few sightings along the Merrimack.
Yeah, man, I think either they're burying their dead or hauling them off into the caves deeper than anyone can get.
I would agree with that.
Because I mean, again, we've already stated they have better night vision than us, right? Already stated that. And if they are able to go off of sounds to navigate in caves, like if they've evolved themselves to the point where they can navigate caves pretty routinely, right?
Noah.
What's up?
You just, oh my God, you just made a switch click in my head. All these everybody's been trying to figure out what tree knocks mean. And I've said many times, I think they're doing it with their tongue. I don't think they're doing it with a stick.
Echolocation.
Echolocation. What if it's more, if they can use that below ground, that noise,
I mean,
and they can figure out where to go. Maybe it's not a vision thing, and maybe it's a type of echolocation.
Or maybe they're not doing it with their tongues. Maybe they are actually like hitting trees just to figure out where they are.
I don't think they're hitting trees. I don't think your Bigfoot's walking around out in the woods carrying a freaking Louisville Slugger so it can tap on trees. I think it's doing it with its mouth.
Who's to say it's not just knocking on a tree? I mean, if you go out there and knock on a tree, you can make it go tunk tunk. I mean, like something 2 times our size with 4 times our strength, rack rack. You know.
I think
that's,
we may be onto something with that.
That's an interesting theory.
I mean,
what if the knocks are some form of echolocation?
Because I mean, like
not only would they be able to use that above ground to basically get a rough map of the pitches and valleys in the area. If they hear an echo in one direction and they just hear it kind of going off into the distance in the other, they'll know they've got like a cliff face echoing it back. In the other areas, it's smooth sailing.
They can also use it to keep track of where home is.
Right, but underground,
they can use it to navigate.
Yeah, like if they listen to the sound, the tone of the area they're used to, if they can click their tongue and they can differentiate between the tones in different areas, that would be wow.
It's a proven theory it's a proven fact that humans can do that because I saw it on I can't remember what's the name.
They've taught blind people how to navigate with that.
Yeah, I mean,
there was one guy that learned how to do it, and they've since been able to teach people how to do it. That he can click his tongue like that, and he can navigate himself around.
Hell, a lot of
Jimmy G was just saying about that. He says there was a study done a few years ago teaching a form of echolocation to blind folk, allowing them to ride the bike safely. Surely nature can provide similar training by evolution. That I think we're on to something entirely new here.
And like humans can do that. Even not blind humans can do that. Like I know plenty of people who can close their eyes and just based off of the sounds around them know exactly what's going on around them. Like I mean, who's to say that a creature that lives in the woods or lives in caves wouldn't be able to do that on a much grander scale?
Yeah.
I mean, it would make
5674 is the same with whistle. Yeah. Any noise they make could probably be used for them to be able to get some sort of at least rough guidance to where they're going. But
I remember watching that.
Go ahead, Robbie. I was going to say, what if
watching that show that I saw? Well, that the blind guy, they set up a course. He was on a bicycle, and they set up a course and put stuff in. And then, of course, they had people walking beside him just in case he hit it to keep him from getting hurt. But they set this obstacle course up, and that son of a gun rode through the entire obstacle course, clicking his tongue, and made it through the whole thing. That was unbelievable.
And that's a person that was taught to do it. What if that's something that
was a guy he taught himself?
Oh, the guy taught himself. Okay, well, he learned how to do it. Can you imagine
that? Yeah, he was the one that actually started this, where they thought, "Can we teach other people to do it?" So this was the guy that actually the proof of concept, I guess, is what I was trying to say with it. But yeah,
and it's that would explain why we're able to find, where they've gone through people's stuff and find these bones deep into caves, because unlike us who have to prepare and light and take months in advance to get that deep into a cave, something that can just navigate it in the dark, something that's used to that environment can just navigate it in the dark.
Yeah, if it's adapted to it. If that what we thought was tree knocking, if that's something that, like I said, I've postulated they've been doing it with their tongue because I can do it really loud. I can't imagine something that's 3 times my body mass, how loud, and lung capacity, how loud it would be if that did it. If they're using that as a primitive form of echolocation, what if the farther they got into these caves, just like the deeper you get in the ocean, what if we start running into bioluminescence and they do have some sort of light down there? We haven't been that deep. We've only been a couple days down.
Yeah. I mean, speaking only hypothetically here, I mean, obviously, like this is super far-fetched, but speaking hypothetically, I mean, you could go deep into those caves and find a civilization in there for all we know. We don't know what's in these caves.
Yeah, 'cause
We
they
have
haven't explored.
absolutely no clue what's in the bottom of these caves.
No, we have not been that deep. We don't know what's at the bottom of the ocean for the most part.
And like, I don't know, man, it just kind of goes to show just like, one, how little we know as people, and two, think about back in the day when these things may have been surface dwellers, right?
Mhm.
You think about the days when these things might have been on the surface, right? They got hunted into the caves, right? And then they got hunted further back into the caves and further back and further back. And as they get hunted further and further back into these caves, they start learning more and more how to navigate further back into these caves until eventually they're just navigating purely on their own. And they're far enough back to where we forget they're even there.
That's entirely possible. Chisk 3 says, could there be cryptid human hybrids, as in more human than cryptid, since these statements have come out? Yeah, entirely. Native Americans, there were several stories that I read where Native American women would be abducted, and one came back, I think she was 16 or 17 years old. She came back pregnant and gave birth to a malformed, odd baby. It didn't survive. But if it's possible for it to crossbreed with humans, yeah, with the number of missing women that have gone, not just from indigenous persons, but from missing in the missing 411 cases, or missing persons that went missing from rural areas that just never were found. Yeah, it could be any number of hybrids out there.
Well, I mean,
Jimmy G had a good question, though. He says, this isn't a joke, although it'll sound like it. I've got friends explain the effects of mushrooms described as seeing sounds. I don't have any personal experience with that, but, I don't know. We don't know
That
what
was a
the
meme for a
human
while.
brain is.
I
would imagine that was something that was tried in one of the government programs. No, we were talking about it just
the
before
MK
the show.
programs?
Yeah, it's probably something they studied in the MK series.
MK projects were more so featuring LSD instead of mushrooms. It was not necessarily psilocybin. It was more of a concentrated.
Blue Crossroads says, think if the tree knocking sound intensity was done in a cave, that sounds intensity would be tenfold and could map an entire cave system for miles, or at least hundreds of yards. They would know where the best where the route would be. Yeah, I think getting back there, because like I said, I'm just a dude and I can pop my tongue pretty freaking loud.
Think about
I can't imagine how loud it would be in a cave.
Think about how it would sound in a cave, though. You hear something crack off in the distance. You think a rock just fell.
Yeah.
But that echoes further and further down. You hear it again. You just think it's another rock falling. You're you're disturbing the sediment by walking through there. Oh, it's nothing to worry about, right? But in theory, if something is clicking its tongue to navigate in there, we would have no clue because we would just think it was a rock.
Luis Noriega says, the Chinese rail workers claiming that their women were being taken by Bigfoot working on the transcontinental train. I talked to all the people, and the grandparents used to tell them stories of that. It doesn't surprise me. Richard Cox says, I arrested a man on LSD who said he could see sound. Meg said, Forrest asked, what are your thoughts on the Sasquatch Ontario's Nephatia vocalizations? If it's the one I'm thinking of, I think those vocalizations are terrifying. I'm not 100% sure I know which vocalization that is, but there's several videos that have come out of Ontario with vocalizations, and even like when I was talking to Doug Hychek, some of these vocalizations are freaking terrifying, and you can't associate them with any known animal.
Well, wasn't it the Ohio howl? Wasn't that the one that the two guys were blasting?
Yes.
And then so in theory that could have been the Grassman.
Yeah, very well could have been.
I just had a thought about something that we were just discussing, the hybrids idea, right? So I mean, if you think about it, humans and whatever these creatures are both species of hominids, right? Mm-hmm. Like whatever a Bigfoot is, like in theory is a hominid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, look at horses and mules, or you look at horses and donkeys, they make mules, right? Look at horses and zebras, or zebras and donkeys, right? Well, they make these
Donkeys.
crossbreeds, right?
Mhm.
So,
but generally the crossbreeds are usually sterile.
right.
Not
But-
always, but usually.
But I mean, like, two species of hominid should be able to do the same thing, right? In
But
theory.
it may not. But it may not breed true. It may just be a one-shot thing.
Right, yeah, and
we
it
don't
could
know
just-
if it can continue to be an evolving part of the species.
Right. It could just be a completely amorphous monster for all we know, but
Jimmy G says, what I was suggesting with that is that the diet of these creatures could be providing advantages to those echolocation and other systems of dark sight. Knowing their diet may help understand them. You've got a good point there. And one of the articles I was reading was talking about one of the organs that goes missing routinely from these big ungulates and from cattle is the liver. And supposedly the liver has a lot of enzymes in it that will directly affect night vision. The government has done experiments with, I believe it was either belladonna or wolfsbane, using aconite. They call it wolfsbane, but it's a plant. It's called aconite. But they were using one of the two, and I don't remember which one it was. I have to find the article again. But they were using extracts and putting drops in people's eyes, and it was giving them better night vision. They were playing with the idea of using that instead of giving soldiers low light gear, but I don't know how far the research went.
hey, man, I've always been told that carrots will help me with my eyesight. I'll stick with the carrots, not the liver. Y'all can keep the awful meats. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm not big into organs.
Nah.
I'll take carrots any day of the week, man.
But is that true? Do carrots really improve your vision, or is that just one of those old wives' tales?
Oh, hell, I don't know. I just like carrots,
I-
man. Any excuse
I
I
think
can
that was
find to
just
eat 'em.
I think that's just something that parents made up to make their kids eat their vegetables.
Hey, man, Popeye taught me that spinach will make me strong. All right, so you know what? I don't care if it's a
What a
lie.
liar Popeye turned out to be.
Well, I don't care if it's a lie. I like spinach now. All right. That's going on my sandwich every time. All right. Love me some spinach.
Forrest says, I think they eat more raw plant matter than we imagine. You're probably right. I believe Bigfoot are omnivores, but I think dogman are more carnivorous.
Well, look at every other species of ape on the planet.
Yeah, they're omnivores.
I mean, pretty much every other hominid eats both plants and meat. There are a few species of ape that are a little more equipped for eating meat, but for the most part, they're all omnivorous. So I mean, like, a wild United States dwelling ape, I mean, it would most likely also be an omnivore
I would think.
versus a giant bipedal dog. Probably still going to be a carnivore if I had to guess.
Well, and if you've got a giant omnivore like Bigfoot, it wouldn't be something that just sat down and ate a huge meal. It would probably, as it walked through the woods, it'd be like, oh, grab a branch full of these berries and eat these while I'm walking.
While it
I like
keeps going.
I like these blooming tips on this tree. I'll eat those for a while.
Bigfoot trail mix.
Bigfoot trail mix. There we go. now with 50% more granola-fed hippie.
Well, I think, like you said, what you're basically saying is it's going to forage on the way to looking for its next big meal. Like, it's not going to wait till it catches a deer to make that its meal. It's going to forage on the way, so it's always got, because that's a big machine to feed. So it's gonna need to constantly feed that and fuel that machine. I think that's my opinion.
Edson Kidwell says a genetically modified dire wolf. I've got kind of a theory about the dire wolf and Dogman. I think considering that a number of the accounts I've taken, and even some I've seen on documentaries, the witness said that Dogman approached on all fours, and they heard a popping sound before it stood up. I've put out the theory a couple of times, and I'll continue to toss it out there. I think it's something about the morphology of their hands. I think they can pull their hands back and basically form paws. Kind of like how gorillas will roll their hands in onto their knuckles and run on their knuckles. I think it's a more advanced version of that. Because we know some dogs can actually use their paws to grip things. I've seen it done. We had a bull mastiff that would climb the slide and go down it with my boys. I mean, just do right up the slide like just as fast as they went. And I don't know if it was because of grippy toes or just because the dog was fearless, but the boys would go up the slide and go down the slide, and the dog would go right up the slide behind him, go right down the slide. And it didn't phase him a bit, didn't scare him, didn't freak him out. He just the first time I unclipped his leash and let him go with the boys, right up that slide he went, right up the steps he went. And these weren't wide steps; these were, obviously as a slide built for small kids. So it wasn't like it was big steps. He was just right up that thing. So I know certain dogs can grip things. I would, that same bull mastiff, he would put his paw on a bone or something that we would give him, and he would have a death grip on that thing. And it wasn't like he was knuckling or anything. He just had it under his paw, and you try to get it away from him, he could hang on to it pretty good. So I think some dogs can do limited grips with their paws, but I think there's something to the dire wolf theory, and I don't think the government did it. I think it was an evolutionary thing.
Yeah,
but I don't say the government's above experimenting on them.
Forrest had a question for me. He said, Jorg, do you believe Sasquatch are more primate than anything else? Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. I think they are just a species of great ape in North America. I think they're just a North American ape. Because speaking entirely practically and speaking entirely off of the firm basis that we have as humans and as corporeal entities, right? There's absolutely no evidence to suggest that literally any other animal on the planet is from another universe, is from some spirit realm, is from, this or that. What it breaks down to, what the brass tacks is that this is a species of ape. It absolutely is a species of ape. There's no other thing that it could be, because even if we were to kill one and research it, the closest thing that it would resemble would be another ape. So any scientist ever is going to be like, yeah, this is a hominid. Yeah, this is a big ape.
On the evolutionary tree, at some point, Homo sapiens branched off from the same genetic background that apes were on. Pongids went one way, and hominids went the other direction. So at some point, we do have common ancestors, but we branched off. I think Bigfoot. Yeah, I think Bigfoot branched off at a different point. I think it followed us on the hominid side when we departed from Pongid, but it branched off somewhere between there and now. I think it's still got more of the Pongid features than we do, but I think it is somewhere on our evolutionary scale, and that's just my opinion. Again, folks, there are no experts on this. All we're talking is theory based on our own observations and research and interviews and video observation from the rare pieces. So everybody's got theories, and there are no experts in this field. And anyone that tells you they are an expert is feeding you a line. Jimmy G says humans exist at the same time as apes. Doesn't stand to reason that they're a separate branch of evolution support the continued existence of Australopithecus, for example. Yeah, but we do exist at the same time. For the most part, when things branch off from each other genetically, one adapts to the environment and the other does not. So generally, we've got branches out. If you look back at the human evolutionary branch on there, where we branched off from hominid, from pongids, there's probably little offshoots all over the place that just went a little ways and fizzled out. Just because apes exist at the same time as us doesn't mean we don't have a common ancestor somewhere. Apes adapted to their environment. We adapted to the environment we moved on to. They stayed in the jungle. We moved on to other places. So just because there's apes and apes exist at the same time as we do doesn't mean we don't have the same common ancestor. However, I think Bigfoot is a adaptation that dropped off somewhere along the line, and it was perfect for its environment. But we were continuing to leave the hunter-gatherer mode. We were becoming more agrarian. We were hunting and growing our own food, whereas these things were more adapted to survival, even in harsh climates.
And just because apes still exist doesn't mean that we couldn't have evolved from a prehistoric ape. I mean, modern apes weren't around back then neither. You know, it was all evolved from one sort of thing. I mean, like evolutionarily, like everything on the planet evolved from basically just genetic soup at one point. Like millions of years ago, we were all just chemicals in nothingness, right? So I mean, like just because there are other apes on the planet doesn't mean that we are not also part of that same family. I mean, like we're classed as hominids, you know. Silverback gorillas are classed as hominids. Like,
no, I think they're pongans.
Are they?
I think they're pongans.
No, sorry, not silverback gorillas. Not silver. Orangutans. Orangutans are hominids.
Are they?
Mm-hmm. They're part of the hominidae superfamily.
Huh. Well, that means that they're divergent somewhere at a different point from from apes. There was another comment I wanted to get to. Where's that? Jimmy G says, could that evolutionary adaptation not have supported subterranean evolution and adaptation? My previous comment was a bit of an oversimplification on my part. Yeah, it very well could. I mean, these things could have gone below ground when we were building fire. You know, just because we learned to build fire and domesticate wolves might have given us a tactical advantage that they know, hey, like, hey, these little hairless bastards are starting to make some headway. We need to start distancing ourselves, or the old switcheroo is going to happen. They're going to start hunting us. So maybe that's the point where they stayed subterranean, or maybe it's even farther back than that. But I think at some point along our evolutionary line is where we're going to find a common ancestor with Bigfoot. And then I hate to say this, but I think it's impossible to explain a mystery with another mystery. I think we've gone a long way toward, even with MK on the show the other night, showing the clear hair follicles. And that clear hair follicle to me is a much more logical explanation on why these things disappear when they go in the woods than some cloaking ability, or because they're going in other dimensions. It's just a natural camouflage ability.
Yeah.
The story I took from that guy that lives on the reservation down near Miami, Oklahoma. He was walking along a creek, rounded a corner, and he said it was just standing just a few yards away, right in the road. Not on the road, right in the trail. He said it was the damnedest thing. It put its hand up by its face and it stepped back in the trees and just disappeared. I said, do you think it like cloaked or went into a portal or something like that? He goes, no, it changed color and I lost track of it.
And to quickly touch, all great apes are hominids, but humans are part of the Homo genus and they are part of the Pongo genus. So we're all hominids.
Okay.
But also, like, yeah, animals with natural camouflage are all over the planet, man. Like I mean, look at like, it's dusk, right? We'll paint a picture for you guys here. It's dusk, right? You're walking up your driveway. There's trees off in the distance. You don't see anything, right? But then when you take out your flashlight and start shining around, you see the eye shine and a deer stands up because it's like, holy shit, there's somebody over there, right? You didn't see the deer until you pointed your light directly at it. That's just kind of how animals are. They just kind of have natural camouflage.
Jimmy G says, kind of like how polar bears reflect their surroundings with the clear hair follicles. Mm-hmm. Exactly like that. And it's like how the next generation of ghillie suits have fiber optics in them to allow them to pick up and redirect the color of the light around them. And again, we're here on DAX Machina, we are not saying that the woo is impossible. We know for a fact that CERN has opened a portal. Portals do exist. But we're looking to find logical explanations for why some of these creatures do some of the things they do. We don't necessarily have to immediately do like the guy on the History Channel, aliens. Just because we can't explain it doesn't mean there's not a logical explanation there. We just don't know it yet. And that's why we research. That's why we look at thousands of these reports. We look for commonalities. We look for, again, like when we had MK Davis on the show the other night, and he showed the clear hair follicles, and he showed the video where that one stopped and it just disappeared, and it wasn't until it moved again that you could see it. That's a perfect example of this natural blending ability. And I don't think,
thinking about Predator, the movie.
Right. It's almost like that. But it's not anything technological. It's not anything other than just a normal a natural adaptation. But by the same token, deer don't have that clear hair shaft, and you can lose deer in the woods pretty easy. Every deer I've ever shot, I only shot because it moved. Lurks a lot says Occam's razor. Exactly. We're not trying to say the woo doesn't exist. We are looking for the most simple, logical explanation to why some of these things are occurring. Robbie's a man tracker. Robbie is a trained man tracker. When he says it is entirely possible for these things to backtrack on their tracks, I 100% believe it. I know guys who were in special forces who were taught to do that very thing. I know hunters from Alaska who've said grizzly bear have done that to them and backtracked on them when they were hunting grizzly bear. Robbie can elaborate more on that. Robbie, you're the smart one in that field.
I don't know about that. I've been to a class or two. No,
know a guy. I know a guy.
I know a guy. Yeah, it's like DA saying, if a grizzly bear can do this, which is, you ask any hunter, any outdoorsman, any frontiersman that has any knowledge of those big carnivores, they'll tell you that they can backtrack you, because you 1 minute you're tracking them, next minute they're around behind you. If that can do it, why can we not believe that something that's as smart as a Bigfoot it supposedly is cannot do that? You tracking it, all of a sudden the footprints just disappear in the middle of a field. Well, what you're not thinking about is that big rock that you passed about 20 yards back, that it backtracked, hopped up on the side of that rock, hopped off into the trees, and went about 30 or 40 yards, south or east or whichever direction it went, hit the ground, and took off in a different direction than it was headed.
Well, the cavalry, when during the Indian Wars of the American West, the Native Americans used to do that to the cavalry. They'd be like, "Where the hell the tracks go? They just ended." They would backtrack on their own tracks and disappear. I mean, it's not something that can't be learned by humans. So why are we saying that an upright hominid that is somewhere on the evolutionary scale alongside us wouldn't be smart enough to figure that out?
That straight up definitely has been evolving to avoid people.
Right.
Like, I mean,
we had to actually be able to identify that in the class. They would lay a couple of track lines, and you'd have to be able to identify. Oh, okay, he backtracked right there, or he stepped off to the side right there. He there's a million different pressure relief points, pitch, stride. I mean, I could go on and on about all the different things from a track that you got to look at to see which way something went. Because just because the track is pointing that direction does not mean that they kept on going in that direction. I mean, there's.
Go ahead, Robbie.
No, I was just gonna say there's hundreds of different things that you could look at in a track to tell which way it went, or which way somebody went. So.
And I learned to track animals when I was a deer hunter. I learned to be able to track a deer so I could find one that, because not every time you shoot a deer, it stays down. Sometimes it'll get up and run for, quarter of a mile, half a mile. It might go pretty far before it bleeds out. So if you're a deer hunter, you learn to track where it went. I learned to track a lot of animals from my uncle, but I'm not a trained man tracker. I would definitely not catch a lot of the stuff that Robbie is trained to catch. So if something backtracked on me, I might not catch it because that's not in my wheelhouse. That's not how I was taught. But Robbie's knowledge of tracking is astounding, because it really sheds a whole new light on all of these stories where people said, I was tracking it and it went out in the middle of the field and disappeared. If you were following a guy in the city and you rounded a corner and he just disappeared, he was gone, would you think he might have went through a door or doubled back on you and got away from you? Or would you immediately think that, he went through a portal into another dimension, or a spaceship picked him up? I mean, it's, we're looking at Occam's razor here. If you wouldn't think another person could do it, why would you think an animal could?
Yeah. And to me, man, it's like we're talking about, another species of like humans, right? We're
Mhm.
talking about another species of like humans, right? Look at the theory behind why humans get uncanny valley. Look at the fact that when we see something in the dark that kind of resembles a human, we don't like that. Why is that?
Yeah.
We see
Inspires
something on
terror in
TV.
people.
We see, you know, a show on TV where someone was specifically designed to look almost human but not really human, and that bothers people, right? So who's to say that a species that is like us doesn't also have uncanny valley? And when it sees people or something that looks similar enough to it, it's like, that's not a good thing. Let's get away from that.
And they've adapted to learn to stay away from us.
Yeah.
Humans generally mean bad news to anything in their environment.
Right.
I mean, if we can't eat it, we'll drive it off. I mean, that's pretty and we've hunted large predators to extinction in areas where we've settled. I mean, there were grizzly bears in Missouri in the early 1800s, but by 1825, 1830, you couldn't find one.
And
Same thing with wolves. There were wolves all over Missouri until about 1870.
And that further backs up my theory from earlier about, you know, at first when we knew they were there, we hunted them into the caves, and then we hunted them further and further back because
and they started going places we couldn't.
We may have forgotten that they were there, but they never genetically forgot us. You know what I mean?
Well, Uncanny Valley might say we didn't quite forget them either.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I imagine it was probably a pretty bloody effort of pushing them back into those caves.
Yeah. Mark Napier says the mid-tarsal break may even help them step back in their own tracks. And Louis Noriega has said, I talked to my cousin who was one of the ones who was stationed up in the Aleutian Islands, and he said he saw a polar bear on top of the hill, and him, like a dummy, went up there to see if he could take a closer look. But when he went up the hill, he noticed there was only one set of tracks that looked like the polar bear backtracked in its own tracks. Then he added, I told the story to my girlfriend one time. She was talking on her phone, and she said that all the police are next door in the empty lot. And there I said, don't tell me tomorrow when I go over, I'll see and I will tell you the story of what and why, when and what happened. And I told her the story of who got arrested and who walked away and how many patrol units were there and where they were put them down to kneel and which ones were arrested and which ones who walked away. Yeah, I could take, if we had a fight in one of the empty fields, you know, down the road where that sinkhole's at, if we had a fight there and, you know, people were knocked all over the place, I would lay odds I could take Robbie down there and he could walk you through the entire thing.
Yeah, that's what we had to do.
Where the piece fell.
Also, Meg asked what castle stays in my back. Oh, this is a picture of like post-apocalyptic London that I found. Like that's Big Ben on my side here. Like it's just a picture of London that I found that some artist like made look post-apocalyptic.
Lewis says, look at the California brown bear. They got extinct. Yeah, they used to joke and say that the only bear in California was on the flag, but I hear in some of the northern parts of the state they're starting to make a comeback.
There's also effort from one of my buddies who lives in California. There's an effort to reintroduce bears to California.
Well, you know, they Missouri didn't reintroduce black bears. Northern Arkansas reintroduced a lot of black bears, and black bears, having since, you know, came north. They would rather live in Missouri than Arkansas too.
Well, it's like
they introduced wolves to Missouri.
I heard that they reintroduced them up in the northern part of Missouri. But one of the guys I was talking to that has land out by the Niangua said that they've got caught wolves on their game cameras there.
Yeah, they're working their way down.
That's the red wolf, right? That they reintroduced.
Yeah, because I think they're the only ones that can naturally like repopulate here.
Yeah, it's like that elk they put up in Tennessee, up in Cades Cove. They're already working their way in North Carolina, and I think some of them even have made it down into South Carolina in some places now.
They introduced a couple of herds of elk down near Eminence, Missouri. I want to say 20 years ago. They were elk that were brought in from breeding farms in Colorado, and they released these elk down there, and the population has just exploded to the point where they say you can't find an acorn on the ground and down there in Shannon County anywhere, and farmers are like, these things are killing us. they're breaking our fences down. They're eating our cattle's feed. Something's got to be done. So now they're authorizing limited hunts. I would love to be able to get one of the limited hunt tags to hunt an elk in Missouri. Elk meat is so good.
Oh, it's so good.
So good.
I love a good elk steak.
Guarantee you, if we got an elk, Noah and I would be making some interesting meals.
Don't tempt me.
For those of you guys, those of you folks in chat that don't know, Noah was a culinary major, and I'm no chef or anything like that. I've just learned to cook my whole life. Between the two of us, we've come up with some pretty interesting recipes. Our chili. Oh,
I was in culinary classes for 6 years, so I would hope that I know a thing or two about cooking things.
Blue Crossroads has got a good point. He says humans have a tendency to continually move. You subconsciously train your eyes to notice movement. If a person or animal stands perfectly still, you'll be more likely to miss it than if you scan for it. I've had that happen to me deer hunt. I've had that happen to me many times deer hunting. There'd be deer out there and I wouldn't see them until they moved. And that's another thing. If you're taking somebody hunting for the first time, that is one of the hardest things to get a kid to master, is to be quiet and be still. Lurksalot says there's a huge elk farm in northern Missouri. I also heard, I think it was Noah was telling me that moose had been seen in northern Missouri.
Missouri gets moose sightings every now and then.
That's another big. I've never eaten moose. I've had most big ungulates. I've had buffalo. I've had elk. I've had mule deer. I've had white-tailed deer. I've had black-tailed deer. Just about every species of ungulate you can eat. But I've never had moose. I hear it's good. I mean, it's just one of the largest members of the deer family. So I'm sure it's gonna taste good. But I've had black bear.
Bastards.
Now I've had black bear, really greasy but good. So there's a lot of animals that not only are they making a comeback, there may come a point where they have to open seasons on them because the black bear in Missouri are becoming kind of a nuisance. Mm-hmm. They're running out in front of cars. They're finding them on Ring doorbell cameras here in Springfield, which again, Springfield ain't exactly Chicago, but for our area, it's the biggest city in Southwest Missouri. It is the third largest city in the state of Missouri behind Kansas City and St. Louis. So we're a pretty big metropolitan area, but we're not Chicago or St. Louis or LA, but for our area, we're pretty big. And they're finding mountain lions and black bear on Ring doorbell cameras inside Springfield. To me, that's not just a little alarming, it's also a little telling that the populations are getting so big, they're having to expand their territories into areas they normally wouldn't go. Robert D says Doc Gardner had a big farm up here with elk and moose and other types of animals on it when he was alive. So I wonder if the animals got released or if somebody else is taking care of them. Outlaw Nation says I've seen a moose in the Chuska Mountain one time. I had the crap scared out of me by a moose one time. So this was up, I want to say it was in Montana. I don't remember where it was. We were at a national park, and some buddies of mine went for a hike, and I had just stayed there. We rode our motorcycles up there. I was 19 or 20, and I didn't feel like going up where they were going. They wanted to go look at some observation point that I didn't care about, and I was just kind of sitting on this log right in the parking area, and I'd been sitting there about half an hour, was just messing around. I think I was carving something with my pocket knife. This was back before cell phones, and I hear like this snort behind me, and I turned and looked, and there was a freaking bull moose about 10 feet behind me just looking at me. I'm like, how did that big son of a gun sneak up on me? So I just froze. I didn't know what to do. I'd heard stories about him trampling people to death, and it snorted at me again and turned and walked off.
Missed your chance to taste the moose.
Yeah, well, the only thing I had on me at the time was a pocket knife, and I don't think I was going to fight it with that.
Jump on it, break his antler off, and stab him with it.
Just jump on his back and get the back strap. That's all I want.
Yeah.
That does bring into light a little bit of something else as well. Particularly following with what Lurksalot just said. The leopard was caught on a game cam recently in southern Missouri. But that brings into, up until, 30, 40 years ago, people didn't believe there were mountain lions in Missouri.
I've seen black mountain lions in Missouri Department. We saw one kill a coon dog. My cousin John and I were coon hunting, and this thing came out of a tree and killed one of the coon dogs. And Missouri Department of Conservation told us to our face, "You didn't see a black mountain lion." We're like, yes, we did. We watched it kill the dog. Like, they don't exist.
Until the late 80s, they didn't believe that mountain lions were even here.
Yeah, and I know for a fact they're here. And when you boys were little, there was a couple of times we went camping, we heard them scream.
We were out on Dustin's property not a year ago, right? All just chilling, minding our business. I think we were grilling and heard a mountain lion screaming as it was stealing a kill that coyotes went after.
Boys, give me 3 minutes. I will be right back.
But like I'll just keep talking while you're gone. We've had this conversation before. But that brings into light, if we didn't believe that there were mountain lions here before, if people didn't believe that moose were in Missouri, at any point, shit like that.
Well, just look at the mountain gorilla. That wasn't discovered by Western culture till what, the 1930s, 1940s, somewhere like that. Yeah, I mean, you would hear the tales of, or all these English observers would hear, or explorers rather, would hear tales of this huge monstrous ape up in the mountains, and nobody believed it until they actually discovered it. I mean, same thing with pandas. They'd hear the stories of the large black and white bears in the mountains of China, and nobody believed it until they actually found them. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, just because it hasn't been discovered yet does not mean it's not there.
And that's another thing to follow in on is, a lot of like primate scientists, a lot of people who research apes are like, yeah, I mean, like the United States, or like not even just the United States, just North America would be a perfect place for a great ape, right?
Yeah, like Dr. Milgram said that many times.
Yeah, there's plenty of scientists who research apes that are like, yeah, I mean, like it would make sense for there to be a North American great ape, but we just don't have one on file. We just don't have one proven to exist. And so that kind of brings into, what is a Sasquatch? If it is a bipedal ape-like creature, is it our North American great ape? Is that what we've been looking for?
Yeah. I mean, it stands to reason that, like I said, just because it hasn't been discovered does not mean that it doesn't exist. And if that's the only thing that stands between, because you've got tons of evidence to prove it, footprints, you've got pictures, you've got videos, you've got tons of evidence, but none of that. And you and I have talked about this many times. A statement's enough to convict somebody in a court of law, but it's not enough to convince anybody that Bigfoot is alive. I mean, you can take
people have gone to prison for life on witness statements.
On a witness statement, but that's not good enough to say that, oh yeah, I did see this. Oh well, I guess it's real then. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Instead, they take the other route. These guys crazy.
Yeah. Exactly. It makes no sense that they take that stance on it when you've got all this. It's a preponderance of evidence, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
because
I totally agree.
You look at somebody like Jeff Meldrum, who's smarter than I'll ever even hope to be, who says, is an expert in track morphology. It says the footprints that he has studied does show that you've got the variance in size and age that
mid-tarsal break.
That there is mid-tarsal break, but it does say that there's enough for generational. I can't think of the exact wording that he used, but basically says there's enough footprints that have been found over time that shows there's been generational comings and goings of these animals. It's not just like you got the exact same size footprint every single time you find these footprints. They varied in size, but they're close enough, and you got the dermal ridges in them, and you got all this preponderance of evidence and stuff. At what point do these people say, unless they've been told to not say this, do they say, oh, well, maybe there's enough evidence staring us in the face that we need to either take this seriously or we need to, the jig is up.
Well, Lurksalot says in Texas, if 3 or more people see you kill someone, you go straight to the chair. No 15 years of appeals.
Yeah, that's the express lane.
That's eyewitness statements. 3 or more eyewitness statements.
That is the express lane to the death penalty.
Okay, Robbie. I'm the RP. For those of you guys who don't know, that's reporting party. Robbie, you're the responding officer. I call you and say, I've got something that's been trying to get into my house, has been killing my livestock. And I think it's a monster. But I show you tracks. I show you hair samples. I show you where something has ripped a door off. I show you all this, and where the damage is like 8 feet off the ground. And I say, this is what's been coming around my house. Are you going to immediately think I'm crazy?
I'm not, but there are other officers who probably would think that.
But based on all that evidence,
based on the preponderance
you've got
of
something.
What else could it be?
Something's out there. I would have, if somebody came to me when I was still an officer, somebody came to me and said, I got these big footprints outside my window. I've got marks on the siding that's 10 feet up where it's pried on the window frame. I've got these big dents in my back door. I've got hair that was stuck in the screen. If somebody said that, to me, that's enough right there. That is enough to at least warrant a prowler investigation. Maybe it's a dude in a suit trying to scare him. Maybe. Or, then again, it might be in Lakeview, man, where they run around the corner and find somebody peeping in the window and then something else gets him.
Yeah. Still one of my favorite sequences in your books, too, by the way.
Other than the monster, that's actually based on a call a buddy of mine went on.
Who of us have not went out on a call like that and dealt with a shithead like that?
That was actually.
I never. Yeah.
You haven't read Lakeview, man?
Yeah.
I don't want. Yeah.
Who among us in the panel or in the audience that is in the thin blue line has not went out to a call and dealt with a shithead like that does not want something like that to happen to them?
Yeah, that whole scene was just straight from a call a buddy of mine told me about, except for the monster.
Which was the best part? Because you just imagine this little goober head running through the woods, and all of a sudden he turns around and gets snatched up from behind a tree.
I like that scene, but the call itself, up until the point the monster got him, was basically based on a real call that a buddy of mine went on.
Did he get away?
No, he was running with his pants around his ankles, and they caught him. He made pretty far though for a guy with his pants around his ankles. Says a dude ran like a sprinter for a dude with his drawers around his knees. But they did catch him.
That's funny.
Jimmy G says only taking one of these attacks before someone like me is lining their cabin with claymores. So I understand them not wanting to admit evidence of cryptids. And again, I don't advocate killing one of these things, and I don't think killing one is going to prove a damn thing. I think Missouri Department of Conservation, if it happened in Missouri, Department of Conservation or Fish and Game or Wildlife, somebody is going to get wind of that kill, and you're going to get very, very discreetly, well, not so discreetly, told to shut up about it, and whatever you shot's going to disappear. Mm-hmm. It'd be very difficult for someone to drag one of those things out of the woods and just go, here it is, because there would be so many things moving against you. I think the only way somebody could actually release a body is if they cut it up and sent pieces to different places, and then kept some in a freezer as in case like a
serial killer that did that.
I think that was on people though. But what I'm saying is, if somebody dragged a Bigfoot out of the woods, I think that'd be the only way it would be feasible. You would have to have a plan in place before you even tried it. And again, I am not advocating killing one of these things because I really don't think it's necessary. It's not a case like I make jokes all the time about the British Museum. Oh no, that couldn't possibly exist. I firmly believe the government knows they exist. And at some point, there's just going to be too much evidence, and they're just going to go, okay, there they are. And I think to an extent that these, what was I calling them? I had a term for it. Soft disclosures. I think these soft disclosures are already starting to happen.
I mean, look at what they did with aliens.
Yeah, well, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, they released a 5-part video series, which you can find on YouTube, about what to do in case of a Grassman encounter or a Bigfoot encounter. When I first heard about it, I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be done tongue in cheek, and it's not. It is not tongue in cheek at all. It is a legit video series put out. Well, there are numerous states that have passed hunting laws forbidding you to kill one, except Oklahoma. Oklahoma went the other direction. Oklahoma offered a $3 million bounty on one alive.
Yeah, Norman, and Johnny just did a show.
What's good, Oklahoma?
Side last night about cryptozoology and the law, where Norman went and he researched laws that certain states have passed against cryptids, and some of them take this stuff kind of seriously. Like Nepal, you better be within an inch of your life before you shoot a Yeti.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally needs to have its claws around your throat, choking the life out of you or ripping your throat out before you can shoot it.
But yeah, I mean, like, look at what the government did with like aliens too. Like, it's like, there's been evidence just piling up, and they've been denying it, and now they're like, yeah, no, here's some released Navy documents that.
Yeah, cockpit footage.
Yeah,
that one guy, he just posted, he said, it's legit. I'm from Ohio. He did a pretty good job on those Bigfoot classes on YouTube. Yeah, those videos are out there, and there are states that are passing laws protecting these things. There are a number of states where it's illegal to hunt them at all. I think it's Washington State. It's even illegal to harass one. And there are starting to be signs showing up on trailheads all across the United States that are saying, possible habitat of Bigfoot. Be careful on these trails.
And
there's a lot of signs popping up.
In Washington, guess what county has the ordinance or the law?
Is that Skamania, the one that had the Ape Canyon in it?
Because Norm was reading it last night. I said, that's kind of fitting that it was Skamania County. He said, why is that? I said, that's the county that Ape Canyon's in. He said, really? I said, yeah.
Yeah, we just did the Ape Canyon show about a week ago.
Yep. That's what I told him. I said,
folks, I know we started out talking about the Ohio Grassman, but the really any discussion about Bigfoot really covers the Grassman. The only thing that really differentiates the Grassman from just about any other Bigfoot story is the nests it seems to make, these big thatched grass dome structures. So any discussion about Bigfoot is right along the whole lines with the Ohio Grassman. I know we roundabout way we did stay on topic, even though we didn't specifically discuss Ohio, although we did in the beginning. There's a lot of stuff that's been reported, and they've been reporting these. I think the first quote unquote Grassman sighting, I want to say back in 78 or 79 near Minerva, Ohio.
Yeah, it was.
But if you Google Ohio Wildman, you can find newspaper clippings going back to the mid 1800s.
Yeah, 1978 in August, Minerva, Ohio.
The Minerva monster.
But like you said, there's and it's not just Bigfoot cryptids that have these laws. Have you ever heard of the White River monster in Arkansas?
Mm-hmm.
That whole stretch of river that thing's supposed to be in, that's a protected area for that specific reason, for that creature. So it's Champ in Lake Champlain.
Mm-hmm.
There, that it's protected. There's laws to protect it. Laws to protect Loch Ness or Loch Ness Monster rather. So a lot of these places take this serious.
Oh, absolutely. This last weekend when Steve Monrotis and I went down to Eureka Springs, Arkansas, we had a photo op moment with Bigfoot. That's at a campground just outside of town. It's this giant Bigfoot statue on a broken bench, and we couldn't resist hamming it up, getting our picture made with it.
Good God, y'all are idiots.
Hey, but you notice no red circles in that picture.
True.
Nope.
Robert D says White Hill, New York also has laws. Jimmy G says technology is outgrowing our capacity to question. Now, when we are shown footage, it's all easy to cry fake. Fact is, we don't know as much about our planet as we seem to think we do. Exactly. Yeah. But the problem is any photo evidence is going to be suspect because of the number of fakes that have been made with Photoshop and Videoshop. Unfortunately, there are a lot of hoaxes out there. There really are. And I hate that because it damages the credibility of people that have legit sightings and when they come forward. And to be honest, I think a large part of that is deliberate. I think there's a lot of disinformation put out there just to make the field look like it's a bunch of crackpots. But it's not like I joked about, like it was back in the 70s when they interviewed a guy with a set of bibbed overalls with no T-shirt, only one strap done. Yeah, saw the Bigfoot and he stole my chickens. It's not like that. I mean, we all joke about that, but that's the impression most people still seem to think of people that have had Bigfoot sightings. But I've talked to highway patrolmen, I've talked to railroad workers, I've talked to doctors, I've talked to a couple of judges, I've talked to a number of lawyers, a lot of other cops that will tell me, like, look, I'm going to tell you this in confidence, and you can share the story, but I don't want my name associated with it or what department I'm with, because it can hurt their careers. I've collected a lot of stories like that over the years. So it's not just crackpots and the people that call, the UFO hotline 40 times a day that are seeing Bigfoot. People from all walks of life are seeing these creatures. And to me, the eyewitness testimony of some of these very credible people is enough. I mean, I've sent people to prison on less.
Yep.
And I mean, one of the best things you can do in any sort of scenario like this is keep an open mind. Don't be the guy that just dismisses it because it doesn't follow what you believe a creature like that would be. You know what I mean? Like just because I don't think that Bigfoot is psychic and I don't think he's some extraplanar entity doesn't mean that I'm going to just completely discount that. I mean, like, fact of the matter is we have no idea, right?
Right.
That's what that boils. That's what that boils down to. Do I think logically and realistically? Yes, it's just a species of ape. Yes. However, we don't know. We don't know, and there's no way to know until we do know.
I know. But what the point Noah's trying to make is, you don't have. We can disagree, and everybody still have their own opinion about this, because it doesn't matter what I think or what Noah thinks or what DA thinks, because it's just an opinion.
Right.
Because
and well, I've said, there's no experts. None of us are claiming to be one. What we've got is theory. And if your experience is different than ours, that doesn't mean your experience is invalid. I'm not gonna be the guy that says all the stuff that they refer to as the woo is impossible. I'm not gonna do it, because it could be that case. We just don't know. But I spent most of my adult life in law enforcement in one capacity or another. So I look for the physical evidence. I look for the logical explanations, because again, you can't explain a mystery away with another mystery. It just doesn't work.
Well, look at mine and Anthony's sightings. what I saw was an animal. There was nothing other than the fact that it was standing upright and had hands ish, that other than that, there's nothing else that made it even remotely human. It was an animal. But
Right.
Anthony looked at his through a scope and he saw a lot of human in the face, which is why he said he didn't pull the trigger.
Right.
But does that make me any more right than Anthony, or Anthony any more right than me? No. I saw what I saw. He saw what he saw. Doesn't mean what I saw was wrong or what he saw was wrong. Doesn't change the fact I believe Anthony saw something that looked different than what I saw. Anthony believes that I saw something that looked different than what he saw. So who says that there's just one type of creature running around out there? What we call Bigfoot, maybe what I saw. What some of these others that Sasquatch, Yeti, whatever
Skunk
else. Maybe that's skunk. Maybe that's more what Anthony saw. Who knows?
Right. Well, there's going to be regional differences. I mean, look at the black bear. If you take an eastern black bear and a western black bear, yes, they are both black bears. But if you look at pictures of them side by side, you can spot a lot of differences. The differences in their patterning of coloration, differences in the shape of the head and the ears. There's a lot of differences in the same species of bear on two different parts.
African elephants and Indian elephants.
Another great example. Yeah. Indian tigers and Siberian tigers.
And Bengals. I mean, you can go on and on. Look at sharks. Look at how many different types of sharks there are.
Hammerhead sharks, bull sharks, great white sharks.
Compare a great white and a hammerhead.
Totally different body styles and even
anything alike, but they're both sharks. But
yeah. I do believe that there are regional variances in Bigfoot. I think it's the same type of creature, but I think they're not only regional variances, but maybe that particular group kicked off the hominid tree line somewhere just slightly different than the other. It's not saying that only one subspecies survived.
And following back on the whole hypothetical earlier about possibly we dive deep enough we might find a civilization of them. Who's to say that these aren't just different tribes, different tribal behaviors? These could be an established civilization of ape. These could be a like human entity.
Well, we had Ron Moorhead on the show. Ron Moorhead is famous for recording the Sierra sounds. The Sierra sounds were analyzed by a Navy cryptolinguist. Not only did they determine that it was a language, they also determined by analyzing the sounds that it was both above and below what a human voice is capable of making. So there were sounds that we're not even hearing. Mm-hmm. So when people go out in the woods and yell out Bigfoot calls, like on a certain television show I won't name, where they go out and yell and try to make these Bigfoot calls, it's like trying to listen to the London Symphony Philharmonic on one headphone. You're missing a lot of layers of sound if you're not listening to it in full stereo. If you've got the one mono earplug, you're really not hearing the peaks and valleys. You're hearing just that one track sound. So I think it's the same thing with making calls. It's why I don't do them. I think if you go out there and you make a Bigfoot whoop, it's like, what the hell is he trying to say? I mean, it'd be like somebody that tried to talk to you without opening their mouth all the way.
Or
you might get part of it.
Or going to a Spanish-speaking country after taking a week of a Spanish class and trying to communicate with them. You might have a word here or two here or there, but you're not going to be able to convey a whole sentence. Mm-hmm. You might have, like, if you got to go to the bathroom, you might know that one word, and you might be able to convey, "Hey, I need to go to the bathroom." But chances of saying, "Hey, I need a place to stay," or "Where's the best hotel?" you may not be able to communicate that. You never know what you're saying to somebody. It's the same thing. You go out and you do wood knocks and whoops and yells. You don't even have any clue what you're saying.
Thank you, Miss Lanita, for the super sticker. You are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lanita.
Another good point on that is when you mentioned Spanish. Look in Spain, the difference between Spanish and Castilian Spanish.
Well, if you want to talk a language with different, look at Chinese. Look at how many variations of the Chinese language there are.
Dialects. But you speak Mandarin, right?
Yeah, not like a lot,
not
like
fluently, but
yeah. I mean, I can hold a conversation with my tailor.
Cord Cole says, I believe they have 2 voice boxes. It's entirely possible. Either that or their vocal cords are attuned to frequencies ours can't even come close to.
Think about how long our vocal cords are because of how long our necks are. But I mean, like, then you scale this thing up to, 1.5, 2 times our height. Its neck is going to elongate from there too, which means its vocal cords are going to be longer, which means it's going to have a much higher range.
Well, even though its head looks like it just sits on its shoulders, like it doesn't really have much of a neck, there's still a neck underneath all that muscle. So God knows how big their vocal cords are. Your theory of them having 2 voice boxes may be, absolutely spot on. I don't know, and we will never know until we can, have one dissected on the table for science. And again, I'm not advocating killing one. I think there is enough other evidence that, as a cop, I would say there's enough to this where you've made a compelling case. I can't ignore this anymore. There's too much evidence for me to just go, no. But you're going to have people, and unfortunately, a lot of them are cops, that are going to bury their head in the sand and say, no, that's all made up. It's a bunch of kooks. And I know a lot of cops that had that exact theory about Bigfoot until they saw one. And those are guys that take me to the side and go, you're not going to believe what the hell happened to me this last weekend.
I mean, again though, following up on your Spanish on your thing with the Spanish thing, because Mark Napier brought up Mexican versus Puerto Rican. It's like you wanna talk about the different dialects of Spanish. I mean, look at someone from Spain speaking Spanish versus someone from Mexico speaking Spanish versus someone from Chile speaking Spanish. Like these are different dialects. Look at the English we speak versus the English Australians speak versus the English speak. Like
which and the variation of English that passes for English in Glasgow.
Yeah. That's Glaswegian.
Strange Road, thank you for the super chat. Yeah, Glaswegian is a language unto itself. Thank you for the super chat, man. Really appreciate it.
Oh man.
Hey, Strange Road. One of you guys reach out to me through Facebook. I want to talk to you guys about maybe getting you guys on the show. I would definitely like to get you guys on the show. So shoot me a message, and we'll kind of open the dialogue on that here.
That's something else I wanted to say, and then I totally blanked.
It happens on the show a lot.
Yeah, I tend to have those brain fart moments where I
we all do.
We're like, my train of thought.
What were we talking about again?
What was the topic? But I think the in the case of the Ohio Grassman, it's very telling in the behavior. Because it's a regional adaptation. It doesn't build those grass nests anywhere else. The one that I was talking about with Chris McGee and I, when we found that nest in an old abandoned house on the 2nd floor, again, it's building some type of nest. Gorillas do it. They find these huge, extravagant, woven together out of palm fronds and other foliage to make this nest for it to bed down in the night. The Olympic project, they found these big nest structures up in the mountains of the Olympic mountain on the Olympic Peninsula. I believe it's in Oregon. Some of the guys who do a lot of research in LBL have found these big nests. So this is not something that's just happening in Ohio. Yes, this is a specific type of that adaptation in Ohio, but we're finding that bedding type stuff in a lot of places, and that's. It's a big primate trait. Even when our ancestors were just learning to make fire, basically what they had was what they could put together to sleep on. I mean, nobody likes sleeping on rocks. Hey, that one guy subbed. Thank you, man. We really appreciate that. Welcome to the DAX Machination. These even as primitive humans, whenever they would make a kill, they would try to make a bed out of a hide or at least a blanket. Um, giving the choice, humanoids and pongans, apes, hell, even deer are going to look for a more comfortable place to sleep. Deer will tramp down the area they're going to sleep in. They'll walk around on it, stamp it down until they've got something comfortable to lay on. So comfort is something we all seek. And I think that's one of those commonalities among these Bigfoot creatures that's going to tell us that what we're finding is legit. It's not just a couple of guys making an X pattern with sticks in the trees, going, "Yep, there with Sasquatch." We don't we don't we don't know what the stick formations mean, but I am finding that in a growing number of people I've talked to who research across the Ozarks, that they're finding those trees that are arched over and made into arch formations. They're finding them that are very close to medicinal plants. So could that be a sign saying, medicine here? Could some of the stick formations be saying, there's a bed structure somewhere around here? Maybe they're leaving, like what they refer to as ranger stones. Rangers will leave messages for each other for the next group to come through. Like, if one group's on advanced recon, they can tell by just certain things that are left behind which way they went. They can leave very subtle signs for each other that if you or I walked by, we'd be like, "Huh, that's weird." But I also know researchers that have been way out in the butt crack of nowhere and found stones that have been stacked. Yeah, sure, a person could have done it. But when you're 4 miles from the nearest road and there's no trail, you're basically bushwhacking, and you come out onto a rocky section next to a stream, and you find this stack of perfectly smooth rocks set up in a particular formation. Maybe it's not another person. Lenita says making calls are ridiculous. I agree. Yeah, you don't know what you're saying. I mean, you might be challenging it to a fight. You might have just insulted its mother, or you might have just propositioned it.
It's like the first episode of Futurama. My mother was a saint. But yeah, I'm following up on what you're saying about these like nests that they're making and whatnot. I mean, like looking back at that house that you were in, right? The upstairs, right? Mm-hmm. With that nest up there. If I walk into a hotel room and there's not a bed in there, I'm gonna be pissed. So if it walks into a place that it's gonna be making as its shelter and it doesn't have a bed, what's it gonna do? It's gonna make a bed. It doesn't see a mattress and box spring like what we have. Like, it doesn't see that as a bed. That's just, I don't know what humans are doing with that thing, but I'm going to make my bed over here, Like, they don't see what we see as a bed,
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think what you're saying is they walk into a place and they look at it and they say, okay, that's going to keep the rain off of me. These walls, obviously they're not walls, but these keep the wind off of me. Now I need a place to sleep. And they're not going to look to bed and say, oh, I'm going to try to sleep on that, because that's just a piece of junk that the hairless monkeys left in the way. So they at
least left us something place we can get out of the wind and the rain.
Yeah. So they take what they know, building their own bedding structure, and there you go.
Yeah, seeing things as far as like how animals will make their homes, right? An animal finds a new shelter, and the first thing it's going to do is to make a place for it to sleep, So while I equated us going into a hotel room to a Bigfoot entering into a house and not finding a bed, while I equated it like that, at the end of the day, what it boils down to is this is an animal making its home for a night, at least a night. You know what I mean? And so you see a deer, you see a deer making shelter underneath a rock for the night. It's going to grab what plants it can to make itself a place to at least rest its head on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Robert D says, I've never did yells or tree knocks on any of my run-ins. In fact, I was doing my own thing and not even looking for them. I've had the best results of anything, vocalizations, things approaching camp. I've had the best results when I didn't go looking for them. I don't advocate going out beating on trees. I don't go out and blast calls. I don't go out and set up in like that one television show. I'm sure you guys have seen it where they're out there hiding in ghillie suits, thinking they're going to snipe one. Those things are masters of their environment. Just because you're in a ghillie suit, don't mean it doesn't know you're there. So I think in the grand scheme of things, I think your best results are just going to be camping somewhere or setting up somewhere and just being quiet. And that's a hard thing for a lot of folks to do. Put your cell phone down and just listen. And it's not going to take very long. It might take 45 minutes to an hour of you just sitting there being quiet. But pretty soon, the sounds are going to go back to normal. They're going to realize you're just there. You're not hurting anything. Things are going to go back to normal, and you're going to hear things you didn't know you'd hear. Robert D says catfishing late night, morning most times. Yeah, if you're out running your jug lines from a canoe, yeah, you're going to see some weird crap. I've seen some pretty bizarre stuff out along the rivers. Not all Bigfoot related, but I've seen some pretty bizarre stuff. Mark Napier says, I really think if you just hang out for a few days, they'll come around and check you out. Yeah, and I think they're checking you out before then. I think they just get slowly closer. They're checking you out from a safe distance before.
Yeah, I mean, like this.
Well, we've talked about that before.
You got to think about it like we're walking into its home turf. It's like it's like if somebody comes into your house, they don't know where the bathroom is. You have the home field advantage because you can be like, you can tell them the bathroom's anywhere, and then they'll go in there and be like, hey man, what the hell's wrong with you? But you can navigate like the back of your hand, right?
Right.
So we're talking an area in which a Sasquatch will absolutely know where it's going. You enter the woods, it will know. It might not know immediately, but it'll know, and it'll know how to sneak up on you. You'll have no idea it's watching you.
Gene Ellsworth just posted this comment. I wanted to say thanks, man. Thank you for picking up the books. Hope you enjoy Lakeview Man. If you like Lakeview Man, I think you'll like the Apex Predator series as well. Speaking of the Apex Predator, one of the mods doesn't mind dropping the link to this. The first audiobook of Apex Predator is available for you to listen to for free over at Dixie Cryptid's channel. Cam and I have a program in place, and believe it or not, we make... Because Amazon ACX, when you put your books up on Amazon Audible, Amazon takes 75 or 76%. The author and the narrator get about 12.5% apiece. So in the time that my Codename Wild Hunt Odin's Call was up for a year on ACX, on Audible, it made more in a month off ad revenue. It's still 100% free for y'all to listen to, but the ad revenue from it being up a month on Dixie Cryptid, I made more than I did in a year from ACX. So this is working out really well for us. It's they're out there. You folks can listen to them for free. They are still going to be available on ACX and other audio places like Podcast Network. They're still going to be available there for y'all to listen to. So hope you guys will check those out. But this is something Cam and I kind of stumbled into, and it does work. So you guys get to hear the audio for free, and YouTube ad revenue still covers me and Cam. So go over there and check those out. Listen to them for free. If you've got a Google Prime, is it called Prime, or what's it called? Google
Amazon's Prime.
Amazon's Prime was Google's got we've got the service. I can't remember what it's called.
YouTube Premium?
No, it's on Google. Google Premium. If you've got Google Premium, you can listen to it without ads. But it still gets paid for the ad revenue. So Don Donaldson says, I just finished Apex last night on Dixie. I hope you enjoyed it, man. I really do. Hope you liked it. but this is something Cam and I have discovered is actually better for me in the long run. Cam and I pretty much split it. So you look for a lot more books coming. Cam's he's just finished releasing the last installment of Apex Predator Wolf Moon. It was a 6-part installment. Most of them are pretty meaty, around an hour, hour and a half. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. You listen to all 6 parts. And we're going to be doing that with a lot of the books. That we've got 2 of the Codename Wild Hunt books. He's getting ready to drop the 3rd Codename Wild Hunt, Operation Blood Eagle. That one should be uploading the first part probably in the next couple of weeks. I know Cam said he was pretty close to getting it done. But look for a lot more stuff like that coming from me and Cam. Short stories, entire books. So this is a program that's working really well. And I think it's probably going to catch on with other authors at some point. But we kind of pioneered it. So, and Cam is a fantastic narrator. I love having him do the books. But Don Donaldson's part 6 is only like 39 minutes long. Yeah, I think he could have broken up 5 and 6 a little better than he did. But I think he probably thought there was more meat on the bone left to do than there really was. So part 6 wound up being a little bit longer. But for those of you who have listened to it, I hope you really enjoy it. And again, look for a lot more projects like that from me and Cam.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
Oh, I yawned really hard, and then it wasn't like I was actually tired or bored or anything like that. It's just like I'm just kind of winding down.
Miss Lene says, DA, if you want me to, I'll have the links for all the audiobooks Cam has done for you next podcast. That would be awesome. Yeah, definitely. Let's promote all of those as much as we can, because I really, the whole idea is putting these out on the podcast format. ACX is pricey, and there are a lot of folks, and I've been reading the comments in Apex Predator and even in some of the Wild Hunt books. There's a lot of folks out there on fixed incomes that can't afford to get the audiobooks, or may not even be able to read that well anymore because of eyesight issues. There's a number of folks on there that said their eyes were bad because of diabetes, and they thanked me profusely for putting that out there where they could listen to it for free. So, this is something I really enjoy doing because I want these stories out there. I want people to be able to enjoy these stories. When an author writes a book, they live off those royalties. And now that I'm no longer a cop, that's pretty much our meat and potatoes. But having said that, those audio stories are out there where anybody can listen to them for free. And I absolutely love that, because people that ordinarily would not have had access to those books are having access to them now. And that's something, again, Cam and I are going to do a lot more of, and be looking for them showing up on, not on just Audible, but on like Google Books and things like that, because they're going to be showing up in a lot more places. And again, folks, thank you guys so much for helping these become popular over there. Some of these videos have 60, 70,000 views, which is just astounding to me. So hope you guys will check that out. And again, over there on Dixie Cryptid, and even on his podcast, he's available on like Spreaker and Podbean and a bunch of others. If you've got those, you can still listen to them as a podcast format. And that's what they're out there for. They're out there so people can enjoy these stories. And I get a lot of comments from guys that are over the road truckers, and God bless those guys for bringing everything in under the sun that we not only order from Amazon, but the things we buy in a grocery store or Walmart. But a lot of those guys listen to those books, and I've gotten some wonderful comments from folks that absolutely enjoyed having these books available where they can listen to. Say, made the drive time seem a whole lot better. And to me, that's 100% why we're doing it, because it's a great medium to get these out there. And again, some folks who are on fixed incomes or have disabilities and can't read the books for themselves are now having access to these things. And to me, that just thrills me to death.
Yeah, and it's almost like it's a win-win situation. The ad revenue takes care of you and Cam, but people are still able to kind of get the book and listen to it if they can't afford to get it on any of these other platforms. So nobody really loses in that situation.
Right. Holy moly, we're at the 2.5 hour mark. Holy bejeebers.
Yep.
Why didn't you guys tell me we were already over 2 hours? Miss Lene is throwing links up left and right. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, Strange Road says, awesome fellas. Talk to DA soon. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Shoot me a message. Don Donaldson says, I read them on Amazon and listen to them when they come out on Dixie. Look for a lot more of them coming. Again, everybody, I want to say a quick word about our affiliate sponsors. Miss Lene posted it here. I'll just bring it up on screen. Scallywag Tactical is one of the best. It's a veteran-owned company. They make some of the best knives I've ever had the privilege of using. Robbie's got the Dew Claw, and if you want that particular knife, you better hurry because it's about to be discontinued. But they've got pocket knives like this one. This one's called this one's the Jolly Roger, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay,
that's
the Jolly Roger,
black and blue.
Yeah, it comes in black and blue. This is one of the most awesome utilitarian pocket knives I've ever had. This thing holds up to anything. It's my everyday carry. I've cut literally everything under the sun with this thing. It is a fantastic pocket knife, and right now I think they're on sale for like $24. You cannot beat a top quality pocket knife for that. Some of them are even cheaper than that. Just absolutely fantastic knives. So, they're a veteran-owned company. Just an absolute fantastic high quality stuff. They've even got some really cool T-shirts, which I'm wearing one. And it's Craig Burhart, the owner, is just an awesome guy. He's a U.S. military veteran, absolute cool dude. They've got like glass tumblers for whiskey glasses and stuff like that. They've got all kinds of stuff over there. Their swag is pretty badass. But check Scallywag Tactical out. You can find them at scallywagtactical.com, or you can follow that link that Miss Lene posted. And if you use the discount code DARoberts10, you get 10% off your entire order. And they have sales all the time on scratched and dent items. And every what they refer to as blemished blade, every blemished blade of theirs that I've got, the only thing wrong was the shipping box, because they come in their own little foam cutout box. Every knife they ship has its own, comes in a box, and every one of the blemished blades I've got, the only thing wrong was one of the corners for the box was crushed, or something smashed the box. There's never been a mark on a single one of the blades I've gotten, and they are extremely high quality blades. So definitely check out Scallywag Tactical. And since Doc couldn't make it tonight, I'm gonna give you a word from Doc, even though he's not in here to speak for himself. So let me take that
cute little guy.
Down. Yeah, here's a message from Pocket Doc himself.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com. along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
And if you go to darkangelmedical.com and use the discount code Cryptid25, you'll get 25% off your order. If you use that link right there, Miss Lenita is posting it as we speak, I'm sure. Follow that link, the tiny URL link, and that is the direct link for the affiliate program, and we'll get credit for you whatever you purchase. And if you include Team Odin or Wild Hunt in the comments section when you at your checkout, you can get one of the little Team Odin rockers that go above the first aid flag cross, the first aid cross on your kit. So hope you guys will check both them out. They're both veteran-owned companies, and just absolute great guys. You guys know Doc. And I can tell you, Craig's just like that too. Craig's just one of those salt of the earth guys that give you the shirt off his back. These are veteran-owned companies, and I'm very proud to support them. Totem Whisper says, Dixie's what got me to find you and your books. Keep the books coming. I plan to. Thank you so much. Look for, in the next couple of weeks, release announcement. I've already got my cover artist working on the cover for Dark Frontiers. It's, like I said, I'm 35,000 words in, and I just released a book 2 weeks ago. So I would look for release information for this one, probably coming in the next couple of weeks. I'm on a path to release a lot more books this year than I did last year. That was my New Year's resolution. So I'm going to try to bring a lot more content, not just content here on the show, but a lot more books and short stories this coming year. I've got a lot of stuff in the works going to keep me busy. But I want to thank each and every one of you guys for coming for spending your night with us. Robbie, tell us a little bit about your show before we wrap things up entirely.
As we like to joke around and say, basically it's DAX Machina Light. You know, we really on this show we really get into a lot of detail and, you know, break things down and try to really get to the root of a lot of things. With what's really out there, Norm, Johnny, and I just kind of like hit the highlights. It's only about usually 30 to 45 minutes. Sometimes we go an hour. Just recorded 2 shows, one about the Rougarou and the other one about cryptozoology and cryptids and the law, like what we were talking about earlier about the laws that were passed in certain states and countries about cryptids and how they're protected in certain areas. So we just, you know, just hit topics like that. It's just any and everything we can find cryptid related, supernatural, paranormal, that kind of stuff. We record the shows on Tuesday nights and we try to release them on Mondays and Fridays when it allows. Tyler and Taylor are kind of in the middle of moving right now, so my production team is kind of discombobulated at the time, shall we say. So those 2 that we just recorded may be a little bit later than what we normally get them out, but if y'all just bear with us, we'll get them out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We just, you know, anything that you're going to hear on here, you'll hear on that show, but it's just maybe a little bit different spin on it. We kind of try to may not disprove or debunk things, but we try to look for
the holes in stories and
what could explain it, and if we can't explain it, then it's okay. Well, maybe this is what people are saying. Just like we did a show on the Lake Norman monster, which I love to aggravate Norman about because the nickname of that monster is Normie. So Norman is Normie from now on. So next time you talk to a DA, call him Normie. I'm sure he's listening tonight. Sure, he's listening tonight. So, and that was for the picture you sent me. If you're listening, that's why that just got released. So thank you. Anyway, but it was just he and I on that show, and that was, to me, was one of the best shows that we've done because we were able to read what people had said and what they saw, but we were also able to look into like 4 or 5 species that actually live in that lake, that once you start breaking it down, like this person saw this, well, that matches this creature, and then another person saw this, well, that matches this creature, and we were able to run it down to about 4 or 5 different species that these people had seen, maybe just the pieces or the brief spots that they saw matched up to another creature that was already living in the lake. So yeah, and that's what this is all about. It's, you know, it's all about finding out what's real versus what's not real, and getting the stuff that doesn't need to be gumming up the system out of the way. That's what excites me about it, is sifting through and getting all the, like you said, all the stuff that's unfortunately out there that's faked, getting that out of the way so we can actually get down to what's real.
Separating the wheat from the chaff.
Yep. Or what's really out there. You see what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there. Noah, tell us about your channel too. I'm gonna put that up on screen where everybody can check your channel out. Also, before Noah says anything, if you guys have an Amazon Prime account, you get a free subscription on Twitch. And if you're not using it, if you'd go over there and beat you to it.
No, I was just saying, give it to me.
Yeah. You can use your free subscription to subscribe to Noah's channel. So Noah, take it away, buddy.
Hi guys, I'm Jorgamunder, or Noah, as I am known by a lot of you around here. I play a lot of video games and just chill out and chat over on my stream. Sometimes we just end up sitting in front of the camera. We will sometimes play video games. It just kind of depends on what mood I'm in for the night. but most of it is just about the community. We have a lot of really nice people over there, and we just vibe out and just have a good time. And I'm usually live for 6 hours a night. So if you guys want to hang out for long periods of time, or you guys just want some extra noise while you work on things, I'm a good place for that, you know. But not only do I stream over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Jorgamunder, but I also post YouTube videos over at youtube.com/Jorgamunder. We have a riot of a time, and we like spreading all that information out and having a fun time. Most of it's not cryptid related, but sometimes we get a bit tangential and start talking about monsters and ghosts and stuff like that. Door screaming is the reason DA doesn't get sleep, is what Jimmy just said. No, the reason DA doesn't get sleep is because he's a night owl and is always awake all night anyways. So
pretty much
most of us don't, like in the house, we really don't go to sleep until the sun starts coming up.
You ain't wrong. I spent so many years on graveyard shift as a cop, and then working at the hospital when I was in charge of security for the hospital here in town. I spent so many years on overnights. The family just kind of adapted to my hours, so we would have more time together. You know, instead of me coming home and being asleep while everybody was awake, you know, the whole family just kind of adapted to my hours, and now it's practically impossible for us to go back to normal hours.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of my reason for being awake all night is, you know, I'll stream until 1 a.m. our time, and then when I'm done with stream, that's when I start doing all my editing work that I need done. And so when they go to bed at, you know, 4, 5, 6 in the morning, I'm up until like 9, 10 in the morning, just sitting there editing away. I look at the clock, I'm like, holy shit, it's time to go to bed. I do all of my best edits when it's late at night and I have nothing bothering me.
Well, hopefully you guys will go over again. If you've got an Amazon Prime account, you get a free subscription for anybody on Twitch. And if you're not using it, you know, head on over to twitch.tv and you can find his channel here at twitch.tv/Jorgamunder, and you can subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you a nickel because it comes with your Amazon Prime subscription. So if you're not using it, it does help his channel grow.
And not only that, follows are free over there. Follows are like subscriptions on YouTube, and then subscriptions on Twitch are like memberships.
Yeah.
So
same thing, different terminology.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, if you've got Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to him for free, and it really does help his channel continue to grow. And so I'm giving him a shameless plug because I'd like to see his really take off too. But folks, thank you guys so much for spending your Wednesday evening with us. Big shout out and thank you to all the moderators. Mods have done a fantastic job keeping all the links posted and keeping everything on topic. So appreciate and love you guys so much. You got the mods do an amazing job. And also want to say a big shout out to all the folks on the Patreon page. We've got a pretty good group of folks over on Patreon. I'm going to be putting something up tonight or tomorrow on Patreon. I meant to do it a while back, but I've been going back and doing some revisions on the first chapter of Dark. God dang it! I just completely drew a blank. Dark Frontiers. This new Western / horror. It's basically it's similar to what the Wild Hunt does, but in 1865. So it's a different vibe. It's a different feel. And I'm really excited to get this one out. I really have kind of thrown myself into this one. I absolutely love it. Just fantastic experience as a writer. It's really letting me kind of do a Western meets horror, which is really right in my wheelhouse. So I hope you guys will be looking forward to that. And I really cannot wait to share that one with you. So again, thank you guys to all my mods. Thank you guys to everybody that's been giving us super chats. You know, thank you so much to all our new subscriptions. We've got a lot of new subs. The channel is growing by leaps and bounds, and I cannot thank you folks enough for that. In May this channel will be 2 years old, and we went from 2 years ago having like 10 subs to we were at 4,111 before the show started tonight. So we've experienced some awesome growth, and I hope it continues. And I want to thank each and every one of you guys for that, because we couldn't have done it without you. Said it before, I'll say it again. We don't have fans, we have friends, and we appreciate each and every one of you so much. And when it comes to cryptid stories or even my books, stories are journeys that we all take together. And I want to thank each and every one of you guys for taking that journey with us. If you'd like to be a part of the DA verse and help, and see things like short stories way ahead of anybody else, and also help shape the future of the DA verse, you can do that over at patreon.com/DA Roberts Author. Let me throw that banner up there. I'm sure I've got it here somewhere, so give me just a second. Sorry about that. I should have been a little more prepared for that. There we go. You can join the Patreon community at patreon.com/DA Roberts Author and help shape the future of the DA verse. Now, I hope you will join us every Wednesday and Saturday night here on DA Ex Machina. We go live at 8 p.m. Central. Just to let you guys know, there won't be a show next Wednesday because I'm going to be out of town. But there will be one on the Saturday though. So a week from tonight won't be a show, but there will be one this Saturday and the following Saturday. Then we'll go back to a regular schedule. So again, thank you guys for spending time with us. Thank you guys so much for being part of the DA Ex Machina family. Hashtag DA Ex Machina Nation. I want to again thank everybody, the mods, the patrons, and everybody that helped make this possible. And you guys are just absolutely the best. And keep William Nighthawk, Pat Kennedy, Pat Murphy, and Anthony as well. Keep those folks in your prayers, because they could use them right now. And we certainly give everything, all our love and support to them, and hope that they and Miss Lene as well. Miss Lene's not completely healed, but she's on the mend. So keep those folks in your prayers, and hopefully they will be lifted up and will be doing much better. So thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for being with us. Thank you guys for spending your Wednesday night. We'll see you on Saturday night. When I still haven't posted the topic for that. So look for that to pop up in the next day or two. We've got some big stuff coming up a week from Saturday, and I think you guys are really, really going to like it. So you guys, again, no show next Wednesday. Thank you guys for spending the night with us. I know another long, lengthy Ozarks good night, but thank you guys for being with us, and thank you guys for helping this channel continue to grow. And go make sure you go show some love to Robbie's channel and Noah's channel. And let's help their channels take off as well. So thank you guys. Bless each and every one of you. And again, thank you guys for being with us. Good night, everybody.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DA Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.